I'd like to welcome everybody to the New Bern Board of Aldermen meeting, January 14th. At this time, the prayer tonight will be given by Alderman Kinsey.
Good afternoon. Happy New Year. I'd like for Pastor Johnson from Ebenezer to come up and open up prayer for the beginning of the year. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Alderman Kinsey. And welcome and blessing to the mayor, to the city council, city manager, and all those that dwell in this hollow, sacred place. Let us bow in prayer. Our Father in heaven, the creator of heaven and earth, we come to thank you first of all for allowing us to enter into a new year, 2020. A year we never seen before and a year we will never see again. But we are so glad that you bless our golden moments to roll on over in this year, that we might together as a family of this historic city to do what you desire for us to do in making our city the healthy, spiritual filled, blessed city here in our world today. We come realizing that without you we can do nothing, but with you we can do all things. And we thank you for bringing us together in the spirit of unity. For we realize that in unity there is strength. We can move mountains when we are united together on one accord and in ministry and mission for you. For it's not about us, but it's all about doing what you want us to do, doing your will. And we ask that your will be done tonight. Not only this night, but rest of this year. We are very much concerned, and we love our city. We love each other, and we respect one another. So just have your way tonight, that you may receive the glory and the honor out of our deliberation and our actions and all that we attempt to do to bring healing, reconciliation, love, and peace and harmony in our city. Bless each one that's present here today. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Let's have a pledge of allegiance to the flag of our country. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll?
Alderman Bingle. Here. Alderwoman Harris.
Present.
Alderman Astor.
Here.
Mayor Outlaw.
Here.
Alderman Kinsey.
Here.
Alderman Best.
Present.
Alderman Aden.
Here.
Okay, let's go to requests and petitions of citizens. Let's start out with Joy McCown. Is it Joy? McKelly? Oh, I got you. Okay.
Greetings, Mayor Outlaw and the Aldermen. My name is Joy Cherry. I stand on behalf of my aunt, Winona Rogers, who has a resident at 1804 Charles Street in the Pembroke community. She was flooded out by Hurricane Florence. FEMA condemned her residence and deemed it unlivable. We have now found a trailer to replace on her property, but the ordinance that they have now saying that it has to be a double wide put back on the property. Now, she is almost 75 years old. She has health issues. We've lived in Pembroke and owned property all out. We've been reared in Pembroke. And now they are saying that she has to have a double wide on her property. I stand before you today to ask if you would amend your ordinance and have the trailer that we found that she can afford and have it grandfathered in on her property. She can't afford to put a double wide on that property. She has no monies to pay this. She's sickly. She has COPD. She has allergies. And we have, with the help of Down East trailers, they have found us a used trailer that can be placed back on her property. She had a single wide there. And because of the storm, no means of her own, not trying to upgrade or anything, but she's just trying to live out her glory days in her own property. And I just stand to ask if this Board of Aldermen can vote to grandfather this trailer that we found that she can afford to pay for, can afford to have it set up, refurbish it, and she won't be in any debt. She don't have the means to get a loan. She don't have the means for anything. And at this point, she's homeless. So we are trying to get her back in her property, which we can afford. The only thing holding her up from being on her property in her own home is this ordinance saying that it has to be a double wide placed on this property. That she's been owning this property. She's already paid for a trailer, been here all her life, paid for a trailer. Her own home has been paid for, but it was damaged by the storm. No control of her own. And why just stand and ask you to have some compassion on an older citizen that's paid her dues all her life to have this trailer grandfathered in on her property that she can live her life out in peace and not in debt, having to struggle to pay and not just be homeless.
Thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am. If you would give us some contact information, Mr. Stevens.
He's
If
already
you-
aware of it.
Okay, and Alderman Harris, if somebody with staff could call Alderman Harris and put myself on the phone, and let's talk about this tomorrow.
And if it's not possible, can we get a resolution to where she can have some place to live, where she can program or something that can put her double wide up there that she can live peaceful. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
She just want to live out her last years.
Okay.
Because if it had not been for the storm, she would have been living there in peace.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Alderman Harris,
Thank you,
is
Mr.
that
Gerald.
good? We'll get some staff on the phone later in the morning. Let's talk about this and see what the dynamics are of it. And, Jeff, is that an overlay or is that in the zoning? I know we did an overlay years ago, but I don't remember if that was Pembroke. I do know Jones Street, Norwood
Yeah,
Street, we
it
did
looks-
overlay, but
As she was speaking, I pulled up our Muni code, and this looks like an ordinance that was passed in 1999, and it regulates mobile homes specifically. It's 15-164, and talks about mobile homes are generically not allowed throughout the city. They are allowed under certain conditions and in certain zoning codes, R6, A5, R20, and that they have certain dimensional requirements, and one of which would be the minimum width of 20 feet, which is more than a single wide
could the
trailer.
Board of Adjustment
sir.
mitigate this? No?
No, this
Okay.
is in the ordinance.
I got you.
We have to change the ordinance language.
Well, so give us a call tomorrow. Let's talk through this and see other possibilities. If there's something, we have a lot somewhere in the city, we maybe, I don't know if legally the attorney we could maybe swap a lot for something that's in a single wide neighborhood that, I don't know.
Can we reach out to Fuller Center, any of those churches that are here to rebuild homes if she's not of means or whatever? They could potentially build a new home for her.
Yes.
I certainly would I'll be happy to reach out to Steve Tyson and that group that is running that.
Is the single wide trailer that was damaged, is it still there?
No, we have removed the trailer.
Yeah.
I talked with Mr. Self before, and he said that they would work with us to put a home back on the lot. Now, like I said,
She owns that lot,
she
correct?
owns that
Right, she
lot. We
wants to
own property.
continue
She
to live in
owns the
Pembroke.
lot.
Right, she wants
It's
to live
paid
out
for.
her
We've
days
been
in
paying
Pembroke.
taxes on it all for years. They've always owned that land.
Well, anyway, we'll get on technicalities. What were you gonna say?
I was just, we'll work with, and make a phone call. I'd be curious, I had a couple questions I'd like to
Real
ask
property
as
or
well.
not?
Well, number one, I mean, if she owns a lot, but number two, the people whom she is working with, is it possible that there's a difference between the single wide to a double wide, that some of these organizations that have funds may be able to make up that difference or something to be able to meet the ordinance? So let us, we've got some contacts and
Right.
things that we could do, but if you will allow me to work with staff and the city attorney, and we'll reach out to some people and see what we can do.
And did you give us the name of the dealer that you're dealing with?
Down east.
Okay.
Down
Out there on
east
Highway
home.
17 out.
Yeah, and she would like to live on her own property.
Right, okay.
Thank you.
Well, we're sorry you're having that problem. Maybe we can work through this.
Thank you.
Okay,
Ms.
thank
Chair.
you.
Yeah.
Next, George Dave and Dave Nelson, or Dave Nelson and George Halligan. I'm sorry. Thanks for what you guys are doing, and we're real excited about what you got going on here.
And Mr. Mayor, Aldermen, ladies and gentlemen, I'm Dave Nelson. I'm here with George Halligan. We're both members of the American Legion Post 539 and the Knights of Columbus. We're here to describe a significant event that's going to occur in March. I'm talking about the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Fund's The Wall That Heals. It's being hosted by the Post and by the Knights of Columbus. George here has been working on this thing for over a year. He's been seeking commitments from sponsors, coordination advice from city officials, support from local organizations, and many, many different individuals. I'm part of a committee that George chairs, and George has got all the details, and he's going to tell you as best he can about this significant event that's coming up. George?
Good evening, Mayor, Alderman, and guests. Yeah, I'd just like to read a brief statement, then any questions you might have would be a lot easier to go that route. Thank you for allowing us to give a brief overview of what we feel will be a major event, both in size and scope, for the city of New Bern. I've been communicating with the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Wall Office in Arlington, Virginia, since November 2018 in an effort to convince them that the wall should come to New Bern in 2020. On September 13, 2019, we learned that out of 116 cities applying to get the wall, New Bern was one of 36 to be chosen. We were asked to wait, however, until November 1st before we went public with this news. Our current committee consists of 21 people dedicated to making this event a safe and successful showing. We are very appreciative of the city of New Bern for allowing us to use Lawson's Creek Park to host the Wall That Heals. We are anticipating upwards of 20,000 people to visit the wall in ceremonies, to include up to 1,000 school children on field trips. Due to limited parking at Lawson's Creek Park, we have asked and received permission to use Temple Church parking lots. Although the lots are only a quarter mile from the park entrance, we anticipate a need for some shuttle buses to assist handicapped persons to getting to the wall. At this time, I would like to formally request the city to help us with this issue. And then we're able to confirm that our keynote speaker on Sunday, March 29th, was a national holiday. It's National Vietnam War Veterans Day, and we're going to have Ollie North as our keynote speaker at the wall. And we also got confirmation from New River that our request for a flyover during that closing ceremony has been approved. So we'll also have a flyover at the wall. And also, I was talking to the gentleman yesterday, they're putting together a boat flotilla. They feel the boating community wants to support the veterans in every way possible, and they're anticipating a 300 boat flotilla off Lawson's Creek Landing when this all comes about. Any further questions, I'll be glad to answer.
Mr. Hughes, could you come up, Foster Hughes, and tell us where we are from city perspective and what the city aldermen need to be doing or not doing to assist the staff?
Yes, sir. So we have been working with the organizers. We met several times on site at Lawson Creek Park, and we're still going through logistics, especially when the traffic patterns and things like that come into play. We've had initial conversations with the police department, and we continue to work through that. So we do look forward to working with the group as this moves forward, and we'll provide more information as we get closer as well.
Transportation, what?
So I heard the request, so we're just going to have to, I'll speak with the city manager, and we'll just have to look and see realistically what we can provide, since we do have after-school activities and things like that going on at that time as well.
Okay. Does the board have questions?
Just to be clear, I would appreciate a formal action. While I'm pretty sure that the board supports this, I would like a formal action if I can by the board, because anything that is not a city-sponsored event that requires city resources or city funds requires us to take some kind of action or charge them, one of the two.
Okay.
So what is the specific ask? Is it just in kind?
Their specific request of what I heard is to assist them with transportation and shuttling from the Temple Baptist Church parking lot area to Lawson Creek Park for any kind of parking needs, especially if they have overflow. Is that correct?
Yes.
Alderman Odom.
Maybe the city manager and staff could work in the meantime and get that data together and possibly put it on our next agenda. That way we can take some formal action. That also gives staff time to identify what we may not have the resources and may have to look at alternatives. So.
Right. And the other thing too, if he mentioned specifically handicap accessible buses and vans, that's one thing that we will definitely need to check on, because that's we may need to inquire through some other resources with that, whether CARTS would be willing to help out or something, because I'm not sure that we have a lot of handicap accessible busing, shuttling vehicles.
Alderman Best.
Can you give me a little information? Is this a wall that y'all will be erecting at some point in time before
Yes.
March the 29th, or is it already?
Now, the wall, this is a 3/4 scale of the wall in Washington, D.C. This is part of their effort. This wall is 375 feet long, comes in on a 53-foot tractor trailer. It's going to take 10 men and ladies to assemble the wall. It'll take about 7 or 8 hours to put the wall up. The truck will be coming in, we anticipate, from Goldsboro. The wall will be in Charlotte the week before we get it. And we're anticipating it's coming from Charlotte via Goldsboro. And we're expected to have a escort the last 50 miles into New Bern. So we're looking at about a 200 motorcycle vehicle escort that'll rendezvous at a shopping mall up in Goldsboro and bring the wall on into Lawson Creek. There won't be much celebration that evening, but then Wednesday morning our crew will show up and assemble the wall. We'll have a soft opening that evening, Wednesday about 6 p.m. Then on Thursday and Friday, 8 to 4, all the school children will be coming, and we'll have people on site to bring them up to speed on what all those 58,000 names on the wall means. Then Saturday and Sunday will be the big events, and then Sunday at 2 o'clock, we'll close the park. Everyone will have to leave. We'll disassemble the wall, and it's off to Virginia.
Alderman Kinsey.
On the water, will the Coast Guard assist any with traffic?
The Coast, that's a good point. We just had the first meeting last night. I was surprised that they think they'll have 300 boats. They're talking about having the Coast Guard as part of the flotilla, along with Coast Guard Auxiliary. They're even going to contact the Navy and see if they'd bring a small boat down. But we've already purchased $1 million umbrella insurance policy for the whole event, so in case anybody should get hurt, we're covered. Obviously, the weather will have something to do with it. The wall was originally supposed to be coming in October, either the first, third, or fourth weeks in October, and we left Mumfest out. Obviously, we couldn't have it during Mumfest, and that was the dates, and so we were gauging everything we were doing toward October. Then they called in September and said, we're changing our schedule. Could you handle it in March? And fortunately, we started early on this project, so fundraising has been good, and so we have, and the wall cost $10,000 up front to get the wall here. And As I mentioned, 116 cities put in for it, and usually you don't get it the first year. It usually takes 2 or 3 years before you get it. And the largest attendance ever was in last October was in Paducah, Kentucky, which is the same size as New Bern, and they had 23,000 visitors. And they have no military bases nearby. So I'd like to have 23,001 person visit the wall, and so we could be number one. And the wall's been traveling for 25 years. It's been to 600 cities, never been to New Bern. So we're finally going to get it.
I'd like to thank you for your effort to consider New Bern as a place to entertain. Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
I know that I've been to the Vietnam Memorial in D.C. on many times, and anybody that can make it from one end to the other without tears in their eyes, that would be a lot said. It's very moving. A lot of names on that. Anybody else? And we really appreciate what you're doing.
Thank you very much.
Before we do our next one, I would like to welcome our former Public Works Director and Interim City Manager, Danny Meadows. I saw you back there in the back. Good to see you. Okay, so next we have Maxwell Oglesby.
Good evening, Mayor, Board, New Year, same me, medical marijuana advocate out here. Don't want to let you guys, let it slip out of your thoughts or anything like that, and let you know that there's people who are suffering from illnesses that could possibly be helped with this. Re-heart the fact that Illinois, within the first day, 3.2 million, 35% state tax, that's $1 million for their state in 1 year, in 1 day. Let's see. Duke Cancer Facility, Fort Bragg, Seymour Johnson, we can keep going on and on, Camp Lejeune, Cherry Point, all these types of people who are around here who we want to stay in this area, who we want to keep in this district, who we want to keep in this wonderful state that could be helped by this. A few people have friends here and things like that. Sandy Valentine called me today, 80-year-old woman. Uses CBD for her arthritis and for her anxiety issues, as well as a plethora of other things that she had recently gotten from a wreck in her Buick. Called to let me know that she was very good friends with people around here and to let her know that she was going to voice her opinion but wanted me to speak on her behalf because she couldn't make it here. And know that she wants to do something that's further for her. She understands that CBD can take it somewhere. She understands that there's other things in the ways of this, but wants to let people know that even her as an 80-year-old woman, that she supports this, even though she can't be here. Now I'm waiting, and we keep talking about a possible resolution of support or something like that, but some people feel like it's possibly not at their level to care about. But I feel like it's at everybody's level to care about the people that they represent. And once again, like I said, I just wanted to remind you guys that I'm still here. I will still be attending, and you will still hear my name on this docket. And I appreciate y'all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any comments on the board on that issue? Any resolution?
We're working on it.
Okay. Mr. Ray Griffin.
God bless you all. Good to see you. Ray Griffin, Oaks Roads. I'm here to oppose any legalization on marijuana. The choices that we make will set a standard for others to follow. No issues can be exonerated from us telling the truth. We must tell the truth about marijuana, what is going on. This is not a religious issue or a political issue or a battle. It's a battle of its good and evil. Legalizing recreational marijuana revolves much around social costs and burdens because normalization of marijuana could lead to the increased use and abuse. There are implications that will be put on our public health, same as the health costs that were associated to the tobacco industry. Many of you men that have went on for years, millions of dollars to settle. Marijuana directly affects short-term use. Marijuana in a young child has a great impact on the developing brain, which is why teens must not use marijuana, and it is not specified that they should because they have brain cell loss. Studies have found that there is a deterioration of the learning and thinking ability that can linger on even to adulthood, can go even further. Marijuana heightens fear, anxiety, panic, and destructions. Chemicals in cannabis can spur hallucinations and affect relationship with others. I believe you can talk to some of your police officers, and I've seen that when I was a little bit with PD, how they hallucinated and went absolutely crazy. Marijuana has a physical and psychological effect. It impairs balance. You know these. I don't have to tell you. Poor coordination, slow reaction time, inability to walk, to talk, and to drive. It increases the risk of depression, anxiety, and causes delusion and loss of identity. Smoking marijuana can lead to breathing problems, cystic fibrosis, bronchitis, and asthma. Let us wage a moral war against corporate leaders where policies and greed are destroying the minds of our children. And we see that happening every day. Young kids now are getting into it, and it's nothing but a gateway drug. I say delete drugs, or they will delete our young from this future world. And I say no to drugs and yes to life. And I look around and I simply say, marijuana will promise you heaven, but it will turn your life into a living hell. And you know that as good as I do. Not only that, but the families that are living in this situation. Life can take you higher than drugs. And I simply say, don't get high on drugs, get high on grace. Get high on what Jesus Christ would have you to do. When you take drugs, your loved ones pay for it. There are going to be people that are going to pay for what's happening. We've seen children steal from their parents, steal from their grandmothers, even cases worse than that I can call you, that have happened. No drugs users will grow old. They die young. Drug is a poison that kills any ambition. We don't need to get high on drugs, but get high on this world and live the life to the fullest that we can live it. Marijuana is evil. And I ask you a question before we close. If your child was holding poison, would you let them have it? If a snake was in your house, would you let him go in there? If there was carbon monoxide or something in that house, would you let him go in that house? If there's marijuana in that house, they shouldn't go in that house either, because it is evil. And we see that many family members that I have talked to have great sorrow because it caused a lot of problems within their marriage and things would happen. So I'll leave you with this one thing and think about what I just said. Marijuana will promise you heaven, but turn your life into a living hell. Amen? God bless all of you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Stephen Kennedy.
Hello, my name is Stefan Kennedy. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
I'm sorry I had your name wrong there, Stefan.
Oh, that's okay. Happens all the time. So I'm here to talk about in favor of medical marijuana. And last time I spoke, honestly, I didn't say what I wanted to say. I just came because I was so nervous. It takes a lot of courage to get up here and speak in front of people that could criticize you for who knows what. But I wanted to speak because I wanted to tell my story a little bit. So I was adopted. My father was addicted to crack, and my mother had epilepsy, and she died of a seizure that lasted, she was in a coma for a few months, but bottom line, she died of a seizure, and I was adopted and brought over here to North Carolina by a good pair of parents, and I was raised very well, so I never experimented with hard drugs. I have done marijuana in my past, and I have a lot of friends from school that I know that have gone to other harder drugs, opioids, pills, even alcohol. And I've seen a lot of my close friends overdose. I know 2 friends by name that are not living to this day because they've overdosed on drugs, pills, and no one's died from alcohol that I know, but I'm sure that happens a lot, accidents and such. So, but just for the people that have died from opioids that, that grew up thinking that they couldn't turn to something like marijuana because it was illegal and there's all this, bad talk about it. But I think the real gateway drug is actually the opioids and the alcohol. Because it's so much more available. And not only that, but it's legal, so it's easy to get it, whereas the marijuana is not legal, and people can do who knows what to it. So if there's any bad cases about marijuana, it's probably because it's been tampered with by people that are not legally allowed to handle it. I know there's been cases where it's been laced by drugs like fentanyl, and for that reason, I don't recommend any of my friends do marijuana on the street because you don't know what's in it and there's no way to test it. But if it was legal and if it was handled by the state, there would be regulations on those, and it would be a lot safer for the community. So those are my main points, but I do a lot of work for older folks that can't really get around their yards, and I help them. I do a lot of landscaping and stuff like that. So a lot of them are physically incapable of doing the things they want to do. And I see that they're suffering, and they're going and taking, these prescription medications that are leading them to more side effects and more heartache and more pain and suffering. So I'm not speaking here for myself, for my own benefit. What I'm speaking for is the older folks that don't have much time left, and the time they do have, they're suffering. They're hurting, they're in pain, and all they're getting is go to the doctor and let him prescribe you some pills so that you can have more side effects. And I think the only side effects to come from marijuana that's not tampered with is an increased appetite and, the desire to sleep, where these other drugs are even causing lack of appetite and sleeplessness, which are the two things we need to live, is sleep and food. So I just think that we need to take a closer look at, the bad parts and where it's coming from, and realize that if the state had control of this, then it would be in a lot better position to distribute. And the folks and the citizens of this city and county would be a lot safer and live a lot better of a life. So that's my position. I also want to speak on the fact that Amway is the #1 direct selling company in the world. And a few of my friends asked if they would ever support, marijuana, and I said, I don't know. But I knew they would come out with a CBD product first, and they have. Just like Max and, his Above the Root shop. Well, Amway is the #1 company in the world. They're international. So I think that speaks for the legitimacy of that. So that's all I got to say. I guess my time's up. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Reverend Ethel Sampson.
Mayor and members of the board. My name is Ethel Sampson. I live at 1038 Sampson Street in New Bern. Flag. Some people call me Old Glory. Others call me the Star Spangled Banner. But whatever they call me, I am your flag, the flag of the United States. Something has been bothering me, so I thought I might talk it over with you, because it's about you and me. I remember some time ago, people lined up on both sides of the street to watch the parade, and naturally, I was leading every parade, proudly waving in the breeze. Your daddy saw me coming. He immediately removed his hat and placed it against his left shoulder so that the head was directly over his heart, remember? And you, I remember you, standing there straight as a soldier. You didn't have a hat, but you were given the right salute. Remember, little sister? Not to be outdone. She was saluting the same as you, with her right hand over her heart, remember? What happened? I'm still the same old flag. Oh, I have a few more stars. And you were a boy. A lot more blood has been shed since those parades of long ago. But now I feel as proud as I used to. I don't feel. When I came down your street, you just stood there with your hands in your pockets. And I may get a small glance, and then you look away. Then I see the children running around and shouting. They don't seem to know who I am. I saw one man take his hat off, then look around. And he didn't see anybody else with theirs off, so he quickly put his back on. Is it a sin to be patriotic anymore? Have you forgotten what I stand for and where I've been? Take a closer look at the Memorial Honor Roll sometimes of those who never came back to keep this republic free. One nation under God. When you salute me, you are actually saluting them. Well, it won't be long till I'll be coming down your street again. So when you see me, stand straight. Place your right hand over your heart and I salute you by waving back, and I know that you remember. It's the same way I feel about Stanley White and Main Street. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am. Has the board had an opportunity to look at the consent agenda?
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the consent agenda as is.
Second.
Motion and second to approve the consent agenda. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same. Motion carries. Item number 7, Mr. Stevens.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the board. Item number 7 is a presentation of our stormwater audit. In 2021, the city is scheduled to have an audit completed for compliance with NPDES stormwater permit requirements. Tonight we have 3 individuals, Lars Hagen, Katie Belaise, and Catherine Knight here from consulting firm Withers and Ravenel. They were retained to perform a gap analysis in anticipation of this audit to determine where our pros and cons, our deficiencies may be. So tonight they are here to present their findings to the board of this gap analysis and subsequent recommendations that we need to implement to be compliant with the requirements of the NPDES permits.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the board. Appreciate y'all having us here tonight. So as you heard, we're here to talk about your stormwater permit. This is a quality permit. This is not quantity. I know New Bern has a lot of concerns about, and rightfully so, about flooding and the hurricanes that come through. This is a different animal than that. This is your stormwater MS4 Phase 2 permit. And what Withers Ravenel was asked to do is come and do a gap analysis. So to look at the requirements of the permit and then see where y'all are doing well, and then are there any gaps, things that you need to improve on. So the team, real quick, so myself, Lars Hagen, I'm the stormwater director for Withers Ravenel. I've also got Katie Belaise and Catherine Knight here with me tonight. They were integral on this project and have done this work in other places in North Carolina to help improve stormwater. Real quick, our company overview. Withers Ravenel, we do engineering, surveying, planning, funding and financial services. Two things on here we're really proud of: 100% employee owned, and then the North Carolina based firm. We work from the Outer Banks to the mountains and everywhere in between, and very proud of that. So tonight, I'm going to move kind of quick just out of respect for y'all's time. The 3 main topics we want to talk about here: your MS4 Phase 2 permit, what that is, the results of our gap analysis, and this is from a 30,000-foot high level. We're not going to get into the nitty-gritty details unless y'all have questions afterwards. And then moving forward, what can y'all expect? So briefly, how did New Bern get here? You go back, and the Cuyahoga River fires in Ohio led to the creation of the EPA by executive order. Soon after that, the Clean Water Act was passed, which resulted in the NPDES, National Pollutant Discharge and Elimination System. And so New Bern's been brought in under the MS4 Phase 2 program on the EPA, and so this is a federal program that's administered by the state, by the DEQ, and then they look to New Bern to make sure that New Bern's following the rules that have been set forth. These are NPDES. This is real. There's teeth behind this. There's, what we've got on here, $25,000 per day fine for noncompliance. That's for negligent violations of the Clean Water Act. Knowing violations are more than that. So this is a real program. These are real rules. This is not something you can kind of, pick and choose what parts you want to abide by. So the NPDES, at its from broad strokes, comes down to what we call the 6 minimum measures. I'm not going to go through all these here, but these are, when we looked at the gap analysis, we went through each of these items and the different components of each of those items to evaluate what is New Bern doing, what do they need to improve on, and so on and so forth. One thing that to keep in mind what's coming up, y'all heard New Bern will be audited in 2021. We don't know if that's January or December, but in 2021 the state is going to come in and do an audit of your program. Just for some background, the state has been doing these audits over the last year. I don't have the most up-to-date numbers, but as of a month ago, I think of all the municipalities that have been audited, only 1 was in compliance. The others have been either deficient or in violation. So there's a lot of work to be done across the state to be able to bring these programs up to compliance. And the state has actually been very helpful with municipalities in terms of helping them along the way. And so our gap analysis, what we looked at, like I said, we went through on a detailed line-by-line basis, several pages of information here. And if you all have detailed questions, I've got my folks here that can help answer a lot of the detail about New Bern Stormwater Program. Again, want to emphasize this is stormwater quality. This is about preventing pollution. This is not flooding and flood control. And those are very real concerns. And but those are addressed separate from this. So highlights, when we got into this, we weren't sure what to expect. Like I told you all before, a lot of municipalities in North Carolina are not up to compliance. Y'all are doing a lot of things well, and you're to be commended for it. For one, we've got over here the beaver and the stormwater culvert. Maintenance is a huge concern of your folks. When we were talking to them, we kept hearing that over and over, that they are very concerned about maintenance, keeping your system clean, doing all they can with the resources they've got to keep the system going. Another thing we wanted to point out, the Stormwater Inspector that the board authorized, and I understand has been hired in December. I remember talking to Matt and telling him it's going to be very difficult for you to find somebody because this need is going on across the state for stormwater inspectors, professionals, and so there is a high demand for that. And so the fact that you're able to get somebody on that quick, you ought to be commended for it. And that'll go a long way, I think, in moving your program forward. The other thing, we've got some of your inspection reports there in the bottom right showing that you are inspecting your stormwater control measures. There's a lot of things y'all are doing right. And I guess one other thing I want to talk about with this, through the course of this, we've been talking to your folks for several months now, and really want to commend Avery in particular. When we started off with this, we were asking a lot of questions, and it was, hey, are y'all doing this? Are you doing that? And the answer wasn't always yes. But the things that y'all could improve on, Avery, he's made a lot of gains just in the last 2 or 3 months in particular on what y'all could be doing, the kind of the things that he was able to do or y'all were able to do. You've done a lot there, and so really been impressed. And Katie and Catherine would say the same thing. Y'all,
excuse me.
Yes, sir.
You're saying a whole lot, that you and Avery talked about, but can you break that down where we can understand some of the conversation that you had with Avery? Because you said earlier that we can pick and choose which formula that we would like to use. So I'm trying to get an understanding of some of the talk that you had that we're doing good, but I don't know what we're doing good in.
So, for instance, as part of the, we'll I guess flip over to this next slide. Public education. Y'all have a website set up for stormwater. You're doing that well. There are some other things that needed to be, we're on a very detailed, there's certain things that by EPA requirement you have to have on that website. You have a lot of them. You need to add some more. The 200 plus calls in the bottom right-hand corner, you have a mechanism set up for folks to call in and complain about stormwater issues. You're responding to those. One of the things we talked with Avery about was, hey, we need to make sure we're documenting all of that in preparation for the audit. You guys have an audit coming up in 2021. The state, the EPA want to see, that's great that you're doing it, but we want to see that it's documented. And so he's made tremendous gains from that standpoint. And he had a lot of the information, but getting it organized and getting ready for the audit. So other things, the wetland park, the Jack Smith Park that y'all do wetland tours of, another great community outreach thing, public education. Honestly, the fact that I'm here tonight, this is a component of public education about your stormwater program and what y'all need to be doing. You have a partnership with QEP, the Clean Water Education Partnership, where they go out to schools and will do education. These are all very good things. Mumfest, QEP shows up at Mumfest and has a tent there where they go out and will hand out flyers and things. And this is to educate the public on stormwater, things that shouldn't be going down the drain, that kind of thing. Improvement areas. So, like I said, y'all are doing things well, but there are things that need to be done. This is probably the biggest one that EPA and the state are going to look at is illicit discharges, illicit discharge detection and elimination. That's what the IDDE stands for. And so we picked out 3 things here. Again, this is just a high level to kind of give you all a quick look at it. But on the left, we've got standard operating procedure development. If something happens, if there's a spill, Avery knows what to do. He knows how to respond to it. But is that written down? Is there, if somebody's out of town, is there a way that somebody else could follow up and follow the same procedure? Major outfalls. So that's your stormwater map that we've got there. You have a map. That's great. There are communities in North Carolina that don't even have a map. But you need to identify your major outfalls. And the reason you need to do that is because you need to start having proactive inspections. Y'all have been very responsive to when you have a call come in that you are responding and going out there, and that's actually the picture in the top right, or on the right there is a template of a notice of violation that y'all have for IDDE. So you've been reacting, but you need to be proactive. You need to be going out on an annual basis and inspecting outfalls and looking and trying to make sure that there aren't things getting into the waterways that are not supposed to be there. Another one, good housekeeping. So this is really about, this is another one that's very important that likely will be audited. How are you, I guess, taking care of your own house? How are you maintaining your own facilities? And so, again, on the left there, a lot of documentation, the facility operation and maintenance manuals. All the facilities that New Bern owns that have the potential for stormwater pollution, y'all need to be have an operation and maintenance manual to address that and control it. More robust training. Basically, you guys need to be training across New Bern, across your municipal staff in terms of what to do, how to handle calls, what's your procedure, that type of thing. And then inspections and upgrades. So you're going to need to go out to your facilities and take a look. Some of the upgrades may be as simple as adding a spill kit somewhere. Other items may be more structural, that, hey, we've got stormwater that has the potential to discharge. We need to make some structural adjustments so that can't happen. And so we didn't go out and evaluate site by site, but these are some things that you guys are going to be looking at coming forward. And so there's a lot more areas to, your goal is permit compliance. There's a lot of things that you need to get there. And so we've just listed off a few here. But so there's a lot of work to be done in order to get there. So what can y'all expect in the future? So right now you've got a gap analysis that we've got in draft form. We're about to finalize it. And so we know what you're doing. We know what you're not doing. We know the things that we call them partial, that you're not all the way complete with. And so you really, I think, you should think about taking that and moving forward with a program plan. How are you going to implement these things? How do you have other concerns as well with flooding and FEMA and that type of thing. How do you roll all those things together and come up with an overall stormwater program plan? Another thing to think about, the first item when your auditor comes out to take a look is that they have to fill out is this program adequately funded and is it adequately staffed? And I think right now the answer would be probably not. There's items that you're missing that you need to bring up to compliance. And so overall, I think, as I mentioned before, moving forward, you need to think about funding for these items that we've identified. Avery's handled a lot of them. There's going to be items he can't get to. There's going to be items that your inspector can't get to. And so is that another position? Is it outside resources? How are you all going to look at that? And so that's just moving forward, I think, kind of some of the things you need to be thinking about. So I flew through that. Like I said, out of respect for y'all's time, I could talk up here for 30 minutes or an hour, but I think you guys have lots of other business to attend to. Do y'all have any questions or any comments?
How often are we inspected?
So the audit so this audit process is somewhat new. You're going to be audited every 5 years, correct? And so, but you do a self-assessment every year right now, and you guys are looking at your own program and doing a self-assessment.
So we've never been assessed or audited before?
Not in the capacity that we're seeing now. I mean, this is the EPA audited all the states. They did 10 states at a time. North Carolina was in that last group of states. And so they came in and audited North Carolina. As part of auditing North Carolina, they said, North Carolina, you need to kind of tighten up on these MS4s. And so that's why you're seeing this audit process kind of going across, municipality by municipality. So, and I guess, right now there's a lot of work to be done, I guess, across.
And who conducts the audit?
The DEQ will conduct. They audit 3 of those minimum measures. The 2 I showed you, IDDE and Good Housekeeping, are typically the ones they pick, and they'll pick a 3rd one as well. And then they will ask you to audit the other 3. So a self-audit.
So the state is the state?
Yes, it's the
Correct.
state. And I want to emphasize the state is your friend here. We've worked with them extensively through this process and through our work with other towns. Very helpful. They understand, y'all's situation, but they want to see compliance as well. But they've been very, they've been great to work with.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I know that you mentioned only one city was compliant, and I would think in the case of New Bern, and we're an older city, and of course of our stormwater system with North Carolina State, the largest man-made retention pond area in North Carolina, probably. So do we get, from a credit standpoint, along with our effluent discharges into the contained quarry area, do we get credits for some things that we excel in, and knowing that there is probably still a lot of underground oil tanks and things like that we continue to mitigate? So what's the...
They're looking for minimum compliance. I don't know that there's, hey, you're doing really well over here, but you're not doing well over here, so we're going to look the other way on that. There's really a minimum bar, and you've got to meet the minimum in those areas. And so I don't think that there's going to be a lot of kind of credit given, I guess, for, hey, we're doing really well here. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Maybe not what you wanted to hear, but.
Well, I mean, I'm kind of thinking like a restaurant, a brand new restaurant versus a restaurant that's been around for 100 years, and there's no way it's going to get 100 on an inspection when it's.
That's right.
Got certain things that are inherent.
And I don't think anybody's gotten 100 on the inspections.
What's your relevant range of that we should be looking for?
I mean, the rule is compliance. You need to get to compliance. The likelihood that you're going to comply by the time of the audit, I can't say. Probably, that's up to y'all. I guess in terms of.
Alderman Harris, go ahead.
So we're going to claim that we're going to get 100 in compliance, but if we do not, what is the time frame that we have to be in compliance with the state?
So I'm going to speak in approximations here. You have after the audit, you have a certain time window when you have to come up with a new stormwater management plan. And as part of that plan, you have to show that you will be compliant in 5 years.
Do you have any other questions? I know that we are good in 15 categories, fair in 18 categories, poor in 11. So could you elaborate on the 11 that we need to some corrections on, so that we as a board can be a little more attentive to those areas and talking with staff?
Alderman Outlaw, that was a self-audit that was done in 2016. When Amanda Boone was here as a staff engineer, she performed that self-audit, and that was kind of the rankings that she got through there. To go through the details of which ones are good and poor, I don't have that with me tonight. But I think the gap analysis that they have done kind of pinpoints all of those areas, and as they wrap them up and provide us with that final version, I'd be more than happy to send that to you guys.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Appreciate what you're doing for us. Keep us straight. Okay, let's go to item number 8, Mr. Stevens.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the board. Item number 8 is a presentation on Project Safe Neighborhood Operation Fresh Start. At the December 10th, 2019 board meeting, a budget ordinance amendment was adopted to, in part, recognize grant funds from Project Safe Neighborhoods grant program. This is the newest initiative implemented by the USA Eastern District of North Carolina in partnership with the North Carolina Gang Association. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Kat. Lieutenant still, Captain Daniels. Captain Daniels now. So I'm going to turn it over to him for his presentation.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the board. As Mr. Stevens said, at the last meeting you adopted a budget amendment for a Project Safe Neighborhood. So I'm here tonight just to give you a quick summary about the grant and what our initiatives will be to obtain our goal. The goal of the grant is to reduce violence and drug-related offenses, specifically gun violence, and targeting those offenders that are repeat offenders for being members of gangs and weapon violations. So our three initiatives to obtain the goal are strategic enforcement, prevention, and intervention. Prevention, the objectives are to get youth involved in community activities and different initiatives to prevent them from wanting to go to the life of crime, getting associated with known gang offenders and being members of gangs. A couple of programs that we're looking at are the Police Explorers program, which we already have, implementing a DARE program back into the city schools, and some other youth outreach programs with our faith-based community. Obviously, the strategic enforcement, what that is a cooperation with local, state, and federal law enforcement agencies, as well as the U.S. Attorney's Office and the Craven County District Attorney's Office, to investigate and prosecute repeat offenders for weapons violations, drug offenses, and seek the maximum sentence we can to make the community safer from those violations. The third one is intervention. The department maintains key community partnerships with various groups, faith-based communities, different organizations and agencies, such as the Craven Pamlico Reentry Council. The goal there is to provide resources and other options for those offenders that are coming back to society to keep them from reoffending. And if you would, I have Mr. Greg Singleton here from Craven Pamlico Reentry Council, who will speak briefly on what he does for our program.
Mayor, Board of Aldermen, Captain Daniels asked me to stand with him today, in which I'm absolutely proud to do so. He asked me to speak on behalf of Project Safe Neighborhood, specifically how the program of this magnitude might have benefited me before going to prison. Upon his request, I thought long and hard about that thing. Understand, it will require me to think back to 1986 through 1992, when there was a war on drugs. The mission statement then is different from the mission statement now as we look at law enforcement. Therefore, I would be remiss to even fathom law enforcement giving me a warning shot or perhaps an underhand pitch from law enforcement to those that may be criminal-minded. What law enforcement is advocating with the backing of the federal government is we know who you are, we know what you're doing, but we want to offer you something different to keep you from going to prison. Yet, law enforcement is also saying to those who do not take heed in this warning shot, I will echo Wyatt Earp in Tombstone. I'm coming for you, and hell is coming with me. This is an opportunity, a huge opportunity for the city of New Bern and our fine men and women in blue. Though the approach is very unorthodox, it is very appropriate for times such as this with our high recidivism rate and those returning. If I didn't feel that way, I would not be standing before you today. This is an opportunity, and I proudly stand beside the City of New Bern Police Department in the progression of this initiative. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Members of the board, just one quick example of the underhand pitch or hitting off the tee that Mr. Singleton's talking about. In November, we did a call-in session where we identified 15 possible individuals that might be in danger of reoffending. We brought them into one location, We had the member of the U.S. Attorney there. We had the Craven County District Attorney there. Different members of society, community partners. And we said, look, we're here to keep you from reoffending. We had places, job placement, housing, and different organizations there to provide them an opportunity. So the thought is that they can either take those opportunity and resources or go at it alone, which, that's difficult at times. So we're hopeful that our community partnerships will prevent crime and reduce the violence in our city. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, this time let's go to item number 9.
Thank you, Mayor. Item number 9 is a public hearing on a substantial amendment to the FY16, FY17, and FY18 Cdbg annual action plans. A substantial amendment is proposed for those fiscal years just mentioned for the Cdbg annual action plans to move unspent funds in housing rehabilitation and public service activities to stormwater system improvement project that's been identified in Duffyfield. Amendment to the plans require a public hearing to be held to receive public comment. At this time, I want to turn it over to Amanda Olensalen, our Community and Economic Development Manager. She has a PowerPoint she's going to share with you regarding the amendments that are proposed, as well as the stormwater enhancement project that we are looking at implementing in the Duffyfield area.
Good evening, Mayor and Board of Aldermen. Thank you for letting me present tonight on the Duffyfield Stormwater Enhancement Project that we're proposing to amend our Cdbg annual action plans for those fiscal years mentioned. I'll give a brief overview of the project itself. So HUD, the Housing and Urban Development Department within the federal government, does a timeliness test on Cdbg allocations. The city of New Bern is an entitlement city. And they conducted this test on May 2nd, 2019, and we were over the 1.5 allowance. Basically had more of our Cdbg funds in the bank than we were allowed. So we have initiated the corrective actions that they would recommend. We have already submitted a workout plan to HUD to address this issue. And how we will come into compliance in the future. So part of that is to complete a substantial amendment to reallocate those unspent funds for those program years. Here's a snapshot of those open program years, 2016, 2017, and 2018. We are also in a process of submitting a drawdown request to HUD, which will bring us much closer to being in compliance for those unextended funds. And the goal will be to be in compliance before June of this year. The contributing factors to non-compliance during those fiscal years mentioned, we did have staff turnover, and then of course in fiscal year 18 we had Hurricane Florence. So that significantly impacted everything that we did, and certainly has contributed to this timeliness issue. As I mentioned, we've submitted the workout plan. That's a pretty extensive process. We are submitting monthly reports to HUD and communicating with them on what our progress is and where we stand in this process. You will remember that you had previously approved another substantial amendment where we were going to try to build new housing stock, especially related to Hurricane Florence. However, that requires a community-based development organization in order to be able to construct new homes, and we could not find a CDBO that could help us complete that process. That's why we're coming back to you right now for the approval of another substantial amendment. We have contracted with Urban Design Ventures, which is a planning firm that specializes in community and economic development. They have expertise in community development block grant programming. So they've been a really great resource for us to kind of walk us through this really extensive process. The purpose of the Duffyfield Stormwater Enhancement Project will move some unspent funds in the housing rehab and public service activities into this new project activity. And it will reduce the risk of flooding for a portion of the Duffyfield community, which is very prevalent at this time. It will also improve public safety and enhance water quality. So the Duffyfield community itself encompasses more than a third of the downtown area of New Bern and succumbs to many frequent flooding events. And there's also within this area of this proposed project, it covers about 1/3 of the greater Duffyfield community, and will utilize city-owned parcels that have been previously acquired through the FEMA buyout programs that you all are aware of. There's a high concentration of city-owned properties that really can't be used for any other kind of development activities. And it'll create a retention pond that will drain into the existing Biddle Street pond project. It'll upsize some pumps in that pond, and ultimately it does drain into the Jack Smith Creek's wetland project. So it's about a 60-acre subbasin, and will treat urban runoff that right now that pollution just kind of goes directly into our system. And it's estimated that the pollutant load will be reduced by 50% with this project. And it'll handle about 5 to 6 inches of rain over a 24-hour period. So, that's a pretty common rain event here. Of course, we're not talking about, mitigating flooding in a hurricane event, but certainly in the more common rain events that leave a lot of standing water in that community. This will address that for a portion of that community. So it really will make a big difference. And ultimately, it'll reduce the flood-related damages and insurance claims, FEMA claims in the future for members of that community. Here's an overview of basically the dollars of these funds that have been not allocated that will be reallocated into a new line item for the Duffyfield Stormwater Project. You can see for fiscal year 2016, we'll be moving over $10,600 into that project line. For 2017, the budget line item for the Duffyfield Stormwater Project will be increased by about $143,000, moving unspent funds into that project. For 2018, it'll be about $194,000 into that project fund. Overall, this project is an over $2 million project that's phased over 4 phases. We in Development Services completed a phase 1 engineering study, and so we will really be able to complete phase 1 of that, which is the improvements to the Biddle Street pond to upsize the pumps, and help with kind of some of the major infrastructure improvements that will need to happen for this project. The pertinent amendment details, obviously when dealing with HUD, there are quite a few deadlines and processes that are very important. This is kind of highlighting it with the total budget amendments being about $348,000 to assist in that project. As I mentioned, here is the phase 1 estimate, which is $272,000 to expand the existing Biddle Street pond, to upsize the force main underneath the railroad, and then install new upsized pumps to be able to better pump some of the water out in those rain events that I mentioned. Phase 2, as you can see, the total project estimation for that phase is about $961,000. So with some of the remaining funds above and beyond phase 1, we'll be able to complete a portion of this project that, through the duration of the project, it's really going to add a new amenity to this community. It's going to have some plantings and landscaping that's really going to help remove some of those pollutants, as well as ultimately have some walking trails and other recreation type amenities throughout the community. Here's a map of the proposed area with the various phases. I'm sure up on the screen it's a little bit hard to read, but as you can see, some of the conceptual images, you can really kind of see the network of kind of wetlands that will move through there, where some of the new plantings will be, and then up in your upper left quadrant is where the existing Biddle Street pond is. And here's another view kind of looking down over the Biddle Street Pond, back into the Duffy Field community with the railroad track there on your left-hand side of the screen. And then sort of just a very conceptual image of what that amenity could look like for the community. And I do like to mention that, the Duffy Field community, when developed, was kind of prior to the stormwater controls that are required now. So this basically will put the standard in place for stormwater that would happen for any new subdivision in New Bern today. I'm
Question,
happy.
what is the elevation over there? Do you know that?
5 feet.
5?
Mm-hmm.
So have the railroad given you all any written permission that they're gonna work with you to run water under the tracks? Because I heard earlier that that was a problem with them. So where are we at with the railroad?
We already do, so I don't believe that that will really change in scope. That increasing the pumps will allow us to get more water out quicker in a rain event.
So the railroad said you can actually...
Matt, would you be able to speak to that a little bit better?
Already doing it.
Yes, sir. I think what the man was saying is we currently pump underneath the railroad track as we do today. So it's bigger pumps. The only question I guess that would come is whether we'd have to enlarge that pipe underneath the railroad. And at that point, we'd have to work with the railroad to get permission to upsize that pipe. But we currently do it today already.
Is that the pump there by the cemetery? Right there?
Yeah, right there
on
on,
the side
right
of
there on
the-
Biddle Street as you go around
Yes.
the curve? Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, okay.
So actually, each time that the funds are increased for each phase, mainly the money is going into holding water, is that correct? And putting plant, we're digging the retaining ponds, I guess that's.
Yes,
the
we'll be
term.
digging out a smaller linkage, basically, of small retention ponds using some natural plantings and different things to kind of filter the water. So it's a large-scale, project that won't happen overnight. This is basically phase 1 of doing that, and then, of course, we can seek other funding sources or grant sources for this project.
Is that one of the lowest areas in the area for flooding where all the water normally?
Yes, sir. Elevation
gravitate?
5 in Duffy Field is one of the lowest. North Hills is probably the lowest.
Mhm.
And you got a couple areas off of Oaks Road, but that whole section of town right there is the lowest. Yes, sir.
And so, how much, I mean, that's something I understand is a very hard thing to measure, is water. So how much water are you looking to pull off to retain? Do you have an idea?
That preliminary engineering study said that over a 24-hour period, this could help retain 5 to 6 inches of water over that 24-hour rain event.
So, let me get this straight. The retention ponds over there that you're going to be building, those are the ponds that would be in the green space now that is classified as by FEMA that you cannot rebuild in those areas, right?
Yes. Yep. A great number of FEMA buyout lots are in that area. The city owns some other parcels that weren't bought out through that process. Obviously, it's very low lying with that high concentration of FEMA buyout lots. So, this really puts it back into better use.
So with that being said, that's telling me that there's no room over there for low-income housing.
This, being in the floodplain, especially when you're using HUD funds, there are environmental factors as well as other studies that it might, that low-income housing must meet certain criteria. So this would not be an area that we would propose for that.
Most of those buyout lots are deed restricted. You can't build on them anyways.
Yeah.
But if you had a developer that came in and had the money to put into that particular lot, that could be done, correct?
No.
They would have to get approval through FEMA, and I don't know if FEMA would approve that or not. I will say that the expansion of the Bill Street Pond, that was something that FEMA approved, and we had to go through a process just to get them to approve to allow us to do those improvements on adjacent lots that we owned to the smaller pond, as it was maybe, what was that, 7 years ago, Matt, probably? 2012. We did an expansion on that old Bill Street Pond. So we had to go through a process. I'm not saying that it isn't possible. Am I saying is it probable? Probably not, being that they spent money to buy those out now. Just to put it into perspective, I mean, if Elevation 5 is consistent with what is the majority of the area there, our new building first floor elevation, finished floor elevation requirements are going to be 12, so automatically you're talking about houses on stilts or built up, whatever, even if it was possible.
So in 5 years, where do you hope to be with the flooding in that area in 5 years, once the project is completed?
So this project covers about a third of the Duffy Field community. So, certainly that kind of 60 acre sub-basin, any other development or housing that would be impacted by this project will be much better off. So it'll be much more attractive for new development in this particular area, because now there will be stormwater controls that did not exist previously that would be required to be made to any other new subdivision for the city of New Bern.
Okay, Alderman Astor, if you have a question.
Yeah, Amanda, please go back to your slide on page 3. I think if your pages are the same as mine.
This one?
Oh, no. I'm talking about the one that says, you're talking about the construction up to 5 homes to address housing needs.
Yes.
And unable to locate a CBDO.
Yes.
And you cannot use this without a CBDO. Well, tell me, what is a CBDO? And how did y'all go about trying to find one?
We thought that we had located one with Habitat for Humanity, but that did not come to fruition. And basically with a lot of discussions with HUD and even reaching out to other communities, a lot of people aren't doing this for that very reason. It's sort of come out of favor really for CBDOs to kind of exist any longer. So it basically is somewhat of a kind of nonprofit development organization that would exist within a community, and we just don't have that available to us in New Bern.
So the developer of these 5 homes would have to be through a nonprofit? Is that what you're telling me, or no?
Yep.
That's correct.
Do they have to live within the city of New Bern, or can they be out of state?
Yes, so providing affordable housing, and this organization would be a community-based organization, so it would be already exist here in New Bern.
So do we still have funds to construct 5 homes if we can find a CDBG? CBDO?
This would have helped us with that timeliness test, because we knew that was going to be coming, happening in May. So this was us trying to be proactive, to not have to submit, a workout plan and go through this process. However, it was much more challenging than we had anticipated. So this substantial amendment will no longer be valid. That's why we're proposing for you to consider this substantial amendment now.
Okay, maybe I don't understand fully, but
that was
it's
just to
a shame that we
reallocate the 2018
missed a chance
years.
to build 5 homes, and I don't know if it's our fault or not, but it's a shame that we missed a chance to construct 5 homes.
And this would be for our Cdbg funding. That could be something that we look into, through other funding sources.
So with this, was it with Habitat, the fact that they will not have the deed or be in control of what happens to the home, why they didn't work out, or?
That was a board decision for their board. I think that they have, a lot of other initiatives that they're working on right now.
Alderman Aden.
Amanda, could you clarify for me, we had the option to either do these 5 houses or move forward with this stormwater project. Was it an either-or sort of decision?
We honestly cannot find a workaround right now to construct these homes using CDBG funds. So we are just to a point where we can't act on that right now with this funding source. So we have shifted another way to work on this stormwater enhancement project, because it also will have, you know, a widespread benefit to the community and hopefully support other new housing development within Duffield.
Well, I guess my take, before Alderman Astor brought up the concern, my take was this is a project that's going to help a lot of people, whereas the 5 homes would only help 5 households. Am I incorrect in looking at it that way?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're correct in looking at it that way. Hopefully this will stimulate investment and make it more attractive for people to build in that area. Yeah, if you look at it that way, yes, that's correct.
I'm going to open up a public hearing at this time. If anybody in the public would like to come up and ask any questions, make comments or statements concerning this, you're more than welcome to do that. Please identify yourself and address, and then we'll go from there. Mr. Woods.
James Woods, 1903 Country Club Road. Mayor, board, Happy New Year. I've been on vacation, okay? Maybe I'm misunderstanding something here. We're taking HUD funds for a home, and we're going to take that money to build a stormwater runoff. No. That's not what we're doing? But I thought what I read was the 5 homes, we couldn't get somebody to build the 5 homes, so to be in compliance, we said we were going to build stormwater runoff.
No, I think there's many phases. That was one component. I think
there are many different options and requirements to meet as far as your funding that you receive from HUD. HUD is, and one of the programs is building homes. There's other programs such as public infrastructure improvements. There's other programs, Jeff could probably run through a gamut of all these different ways in which you can spend those. What we have to do is develop a plan. We have to develop a plan in the way in which we're going to spend those funds. As you saw, there were 3 years with the intention of building homes, and I know staff has worked very diligently. And I want to kind of correct Alderman Astor, if you don't mind. It's not that we dropped the ball and didn't build homes. It's we couldn't find an eligible CBDO under the requirements of what HUD requires to meet the eligibility of a CDBO. So they were searching for people. It's not like we can go pick builder X that builds houses all over New Bern to go do this. They have to be a qualified community-based development organization. And if they do not have that designation, then they can't qualify to be the builder or developer for these funds. Correct me if I'm wrong at any point, Jeff. So that was sought many times, and one of the reasons, like I said, we were trying to work through with the Habitat for Humanity, but their board chose a different route. They have a niche. That's the niche that they want to do, and they were one that qualified as a community-based development organization. Not only that, they are required to meet certain length of operations requirements. I think they had to be in existence for some time. It's not like we could just go say, okay, now we've got a redevelopment commission. Let's go set up this nonprofit, and we'll let nonprofits build a house. That it doesn't work that way. You have to show that you have done this for some period of time. And once again, like I said, this is where the Habitat chose not to do this project. So therefore, to meet compliance requirements with what HUD requires and the way these monies are spent, there are different avenues in the way those monies are spent. This is one where it impacts a lot of houses in that community. Keep in mind, CDBG funds have to be spent in low to moderate income areas. So this meets the requirements, so we're restricted as to even where we can spend these funds at times. So
the answer to my question was no. That we didn't take HUD money to do this. So the answer was no. My next question is, how long is it going to take if FEMA has declared that area that you cannot build homes on it? After we spend the money to do this, and you're saying it's gonna be attractive for developers to come in and build homes, how long will it be before they can do that? Because if FEMA has taken that property, has said you can't build on that property, what I understand about FEMA, that it takes a period of time, 10 to 15 years before FEMA will release that property for you to build on it.
No, we're taking the property that has already been designated as flooded properties, where they took homes that were bought out previously.
Correct.
The homes were torn down or removed or relocated or whatever they did with them, and the lots were deed restricted so that they can't be built on. So these are the lots forever. So these are the lots that basically the city owns, that we spend staff time just going out and mowing with no return on anything, because it's going to forever be owned, and the city owns them. Where we understand the potential development and attraction to be is in the homes that you see, or the lots that you see that aren't within the development area, as in the stormwater area. If you create amenities, oftentimes those amenities attract redevelopment or those who wish to further improve their properties or whatever it may be. So it is the intent that you have improved properties where drainage is improved, where you've got amenities such as fishing ponds or, you know, trees and common space, which is typical in most developments these days, as we require based on our land use ordinances to require common ground, common areas, common spaces. This would meet what in an old neighborhood such as Duffy Field, what would be typical in a new development, where you would have stormwater retention areas, stormwater detention areas, common spaces, things like that. And typically that will create an opportunity where a person who may want to develop an individual lot that's not restricted by FEMA to come in and build a new home because they've got a nice amenity.
Around the retention pond. So if when I'm looking at the map, my real concern is the part that kind of it's small and then it goes out right here on the, I guess, the bottom right. See what I'm talking about, Mark? Mm-hmm. What is the locations of that?
So as if you look at the large block of land, that's Greenwood Cemetery, just to the east, the far east of it. So that's where Greenwood Cemetery is.
No, I'm talking about.
I understand, but I'm telling you, you wanted to know where it was. So that's where it is, Greenwood Cemetery, and you have what is that? Is it F Street?
F Street.
Yeah. F Street, and then Bill Street's where the two ponds are down there. So I'm trying to give you a proximity of where this thing's located at.
And
so
Bloomfield.
Excuse me?
That's F Street and Bloomfield.
Yeah, F Street, Bloomfield, K Street, all of that stuff is right around in that area. And one of the reasons why, too, that you have these long kind of fingered curvatures as it moves through is anytime you have those built into a stormwater design, it helps in the removal of pollutants. It also helps in the detention time that you have, that water takes to get from the upper ends of the drainage basin to where the discharge point is, where our pumps are located at Bill Street. If we can detain that water longer, hopefully the storm will have subsided at that point. By the time the water makes its way down, because it's flat, that will allow us to pump the water out, and that's the reason why it can hold 5 to 6 inches of water typically.
So basically, we're talking from Main Street up to Biddle, or up to East Rose Street.
I don't know what that means. Is that Sampson?
Well, Sampson, the street's in that bottom right.
Kind of the south there, that would be Sampson, where you've got Bloomfield, and those go down and tie into where F and K Street kind of intersect.
Alderman Best, you have
Definitely
questions?
The basin, just real quick. So you're talking about a larger basin. This overall map here that you have, if we were to zoom that out, this actually is a larger basin that is where the water is collected. A lot of that water that comes from down, say, Main Street, some of that area, all that flows down to this Biddle Street pond. From Greenwood, probably all the way up, I would say, to where George Street is. All of that kind of comes down into that area, drains down into that area. So this will help that entire drainage basin and its retention and ultimately detaining and getting rid of some of that water, especially during some significant summer storm events. And as Amanda indicated, this is not a design that is going to eliminate flooding in that area. It's at elevation 5. If we get 13 feet of water like we did, or 12 feet of water like we did during Hurricane Florence, you can probably expect there to be some water in that area. But in some larger rainfall events, deluges, frog stranglers, whatever you want to call them, this is definitely going to help those situations.
Well, I'm just trying to understand where the 60 acres is that we can't build on now that this map is showing, depicting. So
Cumulatively, all of it is 60. Add up.
see, I need to. I'm a on the grounds person, so I need to know: are you talking about from Cedar Street to Main, or Main to Biddle? What are those areas, so we know what we're talking about?
That's your drainage area in yellow.
Well, that's the whole Duffield area. That's the whole entire Duffield area.
Well, we want to get the water out. That's the idea, is to get the water out there and stop flooding people's homes.
Well, Mark just said it's not going to matter.
No, I'd
Well,
say
just that. It will. It'll help from what it's done. You know, if you're going to get 5 to 6 inches out there, sometimes 3 inches will flood somebody's home because of the elevation.
It just won't, it will not be a cure for storm like we
I
had
guess my
Florence
main
come through
concern
here.
is we have a
It'll help.
housing shortage now. And what I see or understand that this is going to create more of a shortage.
It's being, correct me if I'm wrong, staff, but this is all being used on lots that we can't build upon, correct? Except for maybe 2 lots. So it's a net loss of maybe 2 potential home sites. Everything else is dead land. Can't do anything with it. Can't build on it. Let me correct that.
Okay, I mean, when I drive around, I don't see dead land over there.
Well,
I know what you're saying.
If you got a
there's
list,
buildings on some properties over there. I was trying to get in my mind where the exact picture of how this is gonna, because it's not like all these lots are right next to each other that are dead land.
the ones that we've got outlined here to do this project on are contiguous. Why won't we get them a copy of this so you can, because I could see when you went to that previous slide, I can see from here, I don't have the greatest eyesight, but I could see the streets. That might help you.
It goes from it borders F Street down Bloomfield, between Bloomfield and K Street, up to one lot behind Sampson Street.
All right, so that's from Main, if you look at Main Street, from Main Street up towards East Rose. Because, see, Bloomfield Street is a one-way street. It runs from Cedar Street to East Rose or to Biddle.
And if Bloomfield runs from K Street to, well, my map only goes up to Sampson Street because that's all that, where that little jut out is that you were talking about, that is one lot behind Sampson Street.
Mm-hmm.
And all of these lots now are currently vacant, aren't they?
The entire part that you're seeing, especially down at the Biddle Street area, every single one of those lots are completely vacant, city-owned, FEMA restricted, almost every single one of those. That's where we did, if y'all recall, we had the Arbor Day and went and planted some trees over in that area to try to create some tree foliage and different things. The majority of what you see, the main core part of it, just to the right of where the Biddle Street pond exists currently, there is a street that extends down there, which I guess that's F Street, that goes all the way down. That would be impacted, but there's all those lots on both sides are essentially vacant. There are some homes, I think, that exist as you turn down on the backside of Greenwood, which won't be impacted. As you can see them, they're there currently right now. When you come and it intersects with F Street, you make a right, that takes you down to the Biddle Street pond. Once you get past, I guess halfway down past K Street, it's all city-owned properties.
So,
And I can tell you for sure, because Mayor, you and I have visited, and I can't, forgive me for the lady's name, but we've got the pipe that runs above ground next to the lady that has the fenced-in yard. Her and her mother live there.
Lee's Avenue.
Yeah, on Lee's Avenue. Yeah, Miss Townsend that lives on
Miss
Lee's
Townsend.
Avenue. Every single one of those pieces of property there are city-owned lots as well. And that's where that section that you see that's kind of to the rightmost and southernmost section, the larger, as it kind of meanders its way through, that's right there where the Lee's Avenue is. And then the portion that goes along K Street, if you recall, that's the area of lots where the homes were torn down, where we allowed the community gardens to be for several years. All city-owned land.
so Mark, in regards to what Mr. Woods was asking about not building 5 homes there, if we are able to locate a community-based organization, then we'll be able to use Cdbg funds, and I don't know if Mark or Jeff, would we be able to, would HUD give us more funds for buildings, since if we have an organization in place?
I think the funds we get are the funds we get through the entitlement cities money. So we receive funds every single year. It is our duty to develop a plan on how we want to spend those funds. If you do develop or find a community-based development organization, then sure, we could probably have them build some homes. But again, we've had a very difficult time locating one. And the one that we did locate that was eligible didn't want to do it.
So, did you did you ask the Phoenix Project? Would they qualify for it?
They would not qualify. They haven't been in the business, and that's where I indicated earlier, you have to have shown development over a period of time and expertise and experience in doing those kinds of projects to be eligible to receive the funding through the city to be able to build these projects.
What time frame are you looking at? 5 years or more?
Do you know? How much experience and development does a CDBO have to meet the requirements?
Designated.
Is it 15 years? Yeah, Jay's has been working on this too. And again, as Mark said earlier, we've been doing this for 5 years, trying to find a CDBO. And it's called it's a community-based development organization, and that's what it means. And you have to be designated as one. You apply to be one. It's not, I can build houses, so I'm also a CDBO. You have to go through a process to be one. The HUD world and that business of building homes with CDBOs it's over. But we have other options. Don't get hung up on that. We have other partners that we're working with that are willing to partner with us to build these types of homes. So it's not fatal whatsoever. We have a lot of opportunities and a lot of things to look forward to.
When you say you have a lot of opportunities and you have a lot of builders, is this something that we're going to start seeing homes built before the redevelopment commission gets in place, which we're looking at 3 to 5 years before the redevelopment commission may even have funds available to start some building?
Sure.
I mean,
well, there's a few different things going on there. The redevelopment commission can cause a lot of things to happen. Can be built, can bond, can get money, can make money. But we're also working with a large, and I guess a community-based investment company. I have a meeting with them tomorrow. I've had 5 meetings with them over the past 4 or 5 months. Very interested in what we're doing here in New Bern, so we're looking for that partnership there.
Okay, this is still a public hearing. If there are other citizens that would like to come up and ask any questions about item number 9, the substantial amendment to the annual action plans, you can do that. And any other questions and all we can take after we close the public hearing. Yes, ma'am.
Dr. Sampson again, 1030 Sampson Street. I would like to know how it is. Now look, I've been in the area 83 of my 86 years. I've been through floods, and before a whole lot of you were born, I know for a fact we had a whole lot of hurricanes in that neighborhood. In the area besides, a whole lot of them downtown in my time. Okay? And I'm trying to find out how it is that you can come up in our neighborhood and do what you plan on doing. It's a lot of things you didn't know anything about. And you can come trying to disrupt it by putting something that's worth millions of dollars through there, and can't let us have our little bit of houses for our own people, because I just don't think it's right. And that's why I want to know how it's not letting me understand. I really do. I kind of thought I had a little sense, but right now I'm trying to wonder how I got in it. Come keep listening, and let me tell you, a lot of people that's making these plans didn't even, this is just a few years. I got 83 years. I want to know why.
Ms. Sampson, before you sit down, let me make this comment to you. When we speak about these 5 homes will not be built because we cannot use the CDBG funds to build those homes. Okay, but to no avail, we will be building homes over there. And it just may not be in the area where we feel that some homes can be built because they're deemed an area where FEMA has considered them as a flood zone. So we can't build any in the flood zone. But I'm gonna say myself, I'll just speak for myself right now, we're in the process of trying, as Mr. Ruggieri said, we're working with organizations, companies, and developers trying to find someone to build homes in the area. And of course, we have Habitat for Humanity as well that's continually building homes within our city. They may not be 5 or 6 going up over in the Duffield area like you want to see and other citizens in that area want to see, but we will continue to build homes. And we will continue to build homes in the Duffield area.
I didn't tell you, I really appreciate the way that the city did for me toward my illness. Thanks very much. Made me feel kind of good in a way. Made me feel real good about that, but not about this. Thanks.
Anybody else on this item that would like to come up and ask any questions, make any comments or statements?
Good afternoon. I'm Terry Holloway, 1001 Main Street. As I said before, it's a little bit more to the story. All last year, it rained all the way from March, about every other day, some days, 3 and 4 days in a row. And that rain never, ever got a chance to evaporate at all. All right? And then we had the storm to come. All right? Now, it also came to my attention that at the retaining ponds, that the pumps wasn't working. Can we check into that some kind of way? Because that, to me, has a lot to do with what happened back there with that flooding. If those pumps weren't able to run and pump that water out of there. The second thing is, we had our own engineers come down and take a look at what could be done in that area. And like he said, some of the areas is 5 feet. You got some 7 feet areas, and that the gym area is actually at 8 feet. All right? Right where my store is, the water came right to the door. I personally drove around looking at all the land, looking at the ditches, everywhere in New Bern that I could. And previously, before that, my cousin lives at 1904 E.F. Tompkins Street. And just when I heard that the storm was coming, I had looked at his ditch and I said, "Cuz, you better get the city to dig this out, because if it was to rain again, like last time and the water came up to your thing, this time it might come in your house." And he called, they came and they dug it out. So his house was saved, where everybody else on the street, except for Victor Dove's house and a couple other houses that were not damaged like that much. I just want to know, they're talking about putting the new pumps in now, but why didn't they fix the old pumps before? We might not even be in this situation at all. And as far as looking for a CBG, right, it's other cities that do revitalize their cities all the time. So why we can't call another city and find out who the contractors were to do certain things? I think that it should be affordable homes back there. And these people shouldn't have to be moved and displaced. I'm not an original New Bernian, right? But I spent a lot of summers in New Bern, right? And a lot of the things that's in New Bern helped to mold myself. So I feel for the people in New Bern. I really feel for them. That's why I'm down here. I think you guys should really look into what's going on. I can't believe that somebody would even come up and say we could not find somebody. I just can't believe that. I can't believe you could fix your face to say that. So I think we should look into this a little bit more.
Matt, could you, Mr. Holloway,
Yes.
hold on a second. Matt, could you come up and explain about the pumps not working over on Middle Street at any point in
About
time?
3 days ago,
Was
we had a meeting on the 14th, and about 2 days before that, someone came to me and they informed me that the pumps had been broken down and they weren't fixed. And that really pissed me off. It pissed me off so bad that I called some lawyers.
Well, Mr. Holloway, I'm going to let the Director of Public Works come up and talk to you in reference to the Middle
Okay.
Street pumps, because I want to know myself.
I
if
want to
those
know. I
pumps
want to know
was not
where these
working.
pumps working or not. Because to me, along with the digits, because I actually drove, myself and my cousin, we drove all over the city. And every place where the water should drain was covered with grass or blocked. We saw that with our own eyes.
Now, let me say this much, and I can attest to this. There has been drainage system put in over on Biddle Street, going down to Grace Street, and back out to Garden Street. That's some new infrastructure that's just been
Right.
put in. Okay. Now, if you don't mind, Mr. Montaigne will come up and address the pumps, because I want to know this information myself as well.
Yes, ma'am.
Just correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we're referring to the term during the hurricane when the pumps weren't working. What you got to remember is the power was out. Those pumps run by electricity, and the power was out, the pumps can't run. One of the things we are working with Amanda as a part of this project, when we upsize the pumps and we upsize the discharge, that we will install generators as a part of this, so that won't happen in the future when the power does go out. But that's when the only time during the hurricane or during those periods that the pumps did not run. I will add, though, Alderman Astor actually helped us get permission from the railroad that a day or two after we brought in portable pumps, and we actually pumped them with portable pumps over the tracks at that point. But the pumps work. They work on a float system, but they do run by electricity. But with this project, we hope to solve that problem.
Okay.
With the
So
generator.
with this $348,000, that you will be able to put in additional pumps over within that area by the Biddle Street, correct?
Over the phasing of
Phasing,
it, so
okay.
that's not necessarily within the phase one
Right,
that
okay.
I referenced today.
Okay, any other citizens that would like to come forward, ask questions, make comments, statements concerning item number 9, please come forward at this time.
Alderman Barbara Bess, you alluded to that some new homes will be built in place of the ones that. What type of homes have you considered putting over the building over there?
Amanda, could you address that, you or Mr. Ruggieri, please? And I know this will be probably within the redevelopment commission.
We're not building any homes, so I'm not sure.
Within the redevelopment commission.
Okay.
What you just talked about, talking to a company or something that would build homes, what kind of homes would they be building?
No, we haven't determined. I mean, we have a plan to follow. The homes are going to be of a certain size, a certain style, consistent with their surrounding neighborhood, and that's the extent at this point.
So it'll be single and multifamily homes?
At this point, the whole spectrum of housing choices are on the table. Again, we don't even have an approved plan yet. Hopefully, we'll be doing that next month. At that point, we'll look at Our opportunities are the plan itself talks about hitting all income levels and all housing types, detached housing, smaller housing, attached housing, multifamily later on in the plan as the area redevelops. But the first focus is single family detached.
Anybody else from the public concerning item number 9, the CBDG substantial amendment?
Mayor, before we close that, I want to make sure that I understand some of the concerns that were expressed. The lots and all the land, with the exception of 2, are currently vacant, and they have a restricted deed that they can never be built upon. So our options would be to either leave them the way they are now, make a community garden, or continue to cut the grass and maintain them, or to implement a project like this that's not going to solve the problem but can help the problem. What did I miss?
That's pretty accurate.
Okay.
I mean, the idea came from a member of the Redevelopment Commission who's also very successful and experienced builder in the community, was to approach Duffy Field as a new development and see if it were to come before us today and apply contemporary stormwater rules to it, what would it look like? And would you be able to build Duffy Field today if you were just to come in and try to develop it? We had an opportunity to utilize lots that are sitting fallow. They are a community nuisance for the most part. They collect trash and debris. They're not maintained because they're mostly wet all the time. You can't get in there and maintain it. So a lot of the community response was do something with those lots, right? Because they don't add anything to the community and actually detract from, sore throat today. We looked for some opportunities, found some partners. Got with Matt Montaigne, who was working with an engineering firm already, and we said, hey, can we get this engineering firm to look at this idea we have and see if we dig out these lots, these FEMA lots that are deed restricted, to have absolutely no development on them. Very clear in the deed that says you can't build on it. You really can't even put any structure, a shed, you can't put on them, honestly. What can we do with them? They can be used for recreation, open space, very passive uses. That's what the deed said. And so we gave that to the engineer. A few weeks later, they came back with a study and said, wow, look at this. This is an excellent opportunity to capture 4 to 6 inches of rain in a 24-hour period in this basin. That would solve a lot of the periodic flooding from rain events. Nothing to do with hurricanes, as the city manager said, and as the director of Public Works said. Not going to solve any hurricane issue, but it will help with standing water in your typical summertime rain event. We'll get that water off the streets, off the lots, and into this system where then it can be treated and sent into Jack Smith's Creek. All that water is currently untreated, where it ends up in the Neuse at some point in time. Now it provides a mechanism to treat the water, provide up to 50% of pollutant load reduction that it's not getting now, and then funnel it back into the Jack Smith Creek wetland, and also create an amenity. I heard a lot of the comments were kind of focused on we're doing this to create a market for housing. It's really not why we're doing it. We're doing it to solve flooding issues. It's kind of an ancillary benefit that it will create it will beautify the area and may cause some people to build in the community, fix up their home in the community, want to be around something like this. So that's, I'm not sure if I.
Yeah. And to add to that, Mr. Ruggieri, correct me if I'm wrong, there have been multiple public engagement opportunities throughout the Redevelopment Commission process as they just adopted the plan for public comment on, and this being a part of that plan. There's been multiple opportunities, so this is not the first time that this has been presented or discussed.
Are we still in public hearing?
Yeah, well, we're still under the public hearing.
I know this man wants to speak, but I got some comments.
This is to the panel. I have what we did, my cousin and I, what we did was when the storm happened, we went to FEMA and they gave us a woman who sat down with us and went over every single regulation that they got. And I have all the books, so if any of you guys want to review something, he said that once it's done, but that's not true. That's not true. FEMA will make provisions if you come up with a good idea. So if you want to look at the information that I have, right, you're welcome to it.
Mr.
Anybody
Attorney,
else in the public that would like to come? Yes, sir.
Mr. Attorney, can a restrictive deed be revoked once it's on there?
FEMA holds the restrictions, so FEMA can release the restriction. But in my experience, when they pay a great deal of money to a property owner to buy out that house from a flood zone that perpetually floods, they do not have any interest in any structure going back on that property that they'll then have to buy back again when it floods. So the technical answer is yes. The person who holds the restriction can release the restriction, and that would be FEMA. But I can't imagine a scenario where they would release that restriction, as it makes absolutely no sense.
Thank you.
Let me take you back about 15 years in that area. I can remember when the Board of Aldermen, not this Board of Aldermen, Barbara Lee was on it, Rayner, I can't remember everybody else. A bunch of property was seized in that area that we're talking about because the property owners wasn't keeping the property up. And it was a big hado about that. And most of these properties that I can remember, see, I used to work that area. I delivered that area for 5-6 years. I was a UPS driver in that area. So I know this area like the back of my hand. Homes were seized in that area and land was taken by the city. That's why the city owns those properties, because the property owners did not keep them up. So now what I'm hearing is that FEMA has declared the majority of that property over there not usable. How does a deed that had a house on it at one time become unusable? How does that happen?
Yes, sir. FEMA does an analysis because they insure these properties when they flood. So when you build a house, these in particular, and they flood, FEMA writes a check to that homeowner to repair the house. But when the lots are so low and they flood so many times, FEMA will offer the owner an opportunity to just buy the house out. We're not going to let you keep building anymore. So when they buy that house from the homeowner, the property goes to the local government, the city.
But if no one's in the house to start with, who gets it then?
The person who owns the property.
What if the city seizes the property?
The city didn't seize the property.
The city never seized any property in that area?
No, sir. You're thinking of a situation where over the decades, the city demolishes unfit dwellings.
Correct.
And if the homeowners do not pay the cost of that, it goes through a tax foreclosure process. And generally, the city and the county end up owning those properties because the property owners didn't pay the bills. That's generally what happens. But those are not these lots that we're talking about. These were flood lots, low lots that perpetually flooded, and FEMA paid the property owner the money to buy their houses. So the homeowner, the property owner, got them a check for tens of thousands of dollars, and the city got the lot for free. I say for free, meaning with the obligation to cut the grass forever, and a restriction that the property can never be used to build upon again.
So the property that was paid out by FEMA, it might not have happened during Florence. It might have happened, say...
It was about 15, 20 years ago. These lots in particular, I recall, were 15, 20 years ago. Maybe, Jeff, you remember?
A lot of them were during Irene.
Yeah. Danny's saying yes.
Irene, Bertha, Fran.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, anybody else has any questions concerning this item? If not, move for a public.
Make a motion that we close the public hearing.
Second.
Motion and second to close public hearing. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same. Motion carries.
I think Jamie had a question.
Yeah, I
Oh,
have
yes,
a
ma'am.
comment. So, we just did a public hearing, and then this will be brought to the board at a later meeting. Okay, so basically, my understanding is, and I'll take it slow. I understand that we have a redevelopment. They established a plan. We understand that the hurricane took a lot of Duffy Field out, and I feel like this is a step towards improving. It's not going to fix the situation, and obviously we know that affordable housing is number one, but I feel like we kind of have to support the city, support the redevelopment in this part of it in regards to this implementation of the stormwater and trying to create avenues for some of the water, not all of it, but some of the water to get out of Duffy Field. And I know that it's frustrating. I know that it's disheartening because we need houses. They did have a public hearing. They do have the community meetings, and I've been to some meetings, and I know some of the voices, are displeased with some of the redevelopment actions that are going on, and I understand that. But if you can just look at the bigger picture with this plan right here, the stormwater one, that's the one I'm speaking on, I think it is going to be a benefit. And it's always good to have the ability to impact the community and add some features to be able to have developers or anyone that wants to come in. It sounds terrible, as if your community isn't beautiful itself, so I can get that understanding as well. But this is a step in the right direction. This plan, I'm talking about the wetlands and putting in this to kind of rectify a small portion. So, I understand the frustration, but as a park representative of the Duffy Field community, I do support this. I do think this is a great idea, and I want everybody to have an open mind in that community, in our community, in our city, that this is going to be a start to growing and building Duffy Field to what it needs to be, what it used to be, and where it's going to be. But you just have to trust that the Board of Aldermen, that the city staff, that the redevelopment are doing and taking what you guys say into consideration when it comes to this plan, to make the right decision to do what they need to do in regards to spending that money properly and benefiting the community. Yes, we understand we need houses, and I know that they're going to work to make that happen, or we're going to figure out a way to make it happen. But having this put into place, this phase, is a blessing, and that's just what I want to say. I want y'all to be positive about that. I know everything else is frustrating, but just have faith that this is going to fix a little bit of what's going on in Duffy Field. But I know I personally have Duffy Field and the redevelopment on the top list. That we are. I want y'all to have confidence, and especially you, Ms. Sampson, because I know you come to these meetings faithfully, and I want you to know that we are doing everything possible to make it happen. But this is the first step, and you understand. So if you have any questions, you all have the ability to call any member of this board, any staff in the city, if you don't understand what's going on. Right now, it's just a public hearing. We have not voted on it. So you still have that ability to come and talk to us individually and tell us your feelings, because we all want to hear that. We want to make sure we're making the right decisions for the city. So don't think that this is set in stone. This is just a public hearing. Okay? All right.
Okay, anybody else on item number 9? Mr. Stevens, you looking for any actions on that?
No actions tonight for that, sir.
Okay, let's go to item number 10. Mr. Stevens.
Thank you, Mayor. Item number 10 is board's consideration to adopt a resolution approving a MOU with UMO. This is a Memorandum of Understanding with the University of Mount Olive. They have approached the city and would like to assist the City of New Bern employees in their pursuit of higher education. A 3-year agreement is proposed that would waive application fees and offer a 10% or 30% tuition scholarship to eligible employees who attend online and on-site classes. The city would provide opportunities for them to market the scholarship and related programs to the employees in an effort to make them aware of the opportunities. Tonight we have with us Dr. Stuart Blunt. He's the Regional Director with the University of Mount Olive. He's got a brief presentation that he's going to talk about this proposal and would request the board to consider.
Thank you, Mr. Stevens, Mayor Outlaw, Board of Aldermen members. I am pleased to be here on behalf of the University of Mount Olive to what I hope will be a beginning of a long-lasting partnership. And you have in your packet, I believe, the nuts and bolts of the partnership, but just a brief overview of the tuition scholarship. Through this partnership, any employee with the City of New Bern, whether that's part-time or full-time employees, if they elect to go back and to gain a higher degree, if they have an associate's degree and want to finish a 4-year degree, or if they just want to start off with a 4-year degree, the University of Mount Olive would be partnering with you to provide a 10% or 30% discount tuition scholarship in regards to the cost to come back to school. No obligation in regards to number of students. We believe that an opportunity to give back to the great city of New Bern and to provide an opportunity for folks to further their education. And we would be delighted to partner with you, and I would be glad to answer any questions that any of you may have.
Well, I just want to thank you on behalf of the board and the city for, I know Danny Meadows, I think you got a degree through Mount Olive, didn't you, Danny? And quite a few others, and we appreciate this opportunity, and we certainly are looking for advancement for our 470 employees. And at the same time, your wife Tony and you, we appreciate what all you guys have been involved in, and Tony's new job here in New Bern, and we just can't thank you enough for the educational opportunities, and you know how involved we are with workforce development and this relationship with Mount Olive. So we're ready to get on board with you. Board?
Absolutely.
I think it's great. I'd like to make a motion that we adopt a resolution approving a memorandum of understanding with the University of Mount Olive.
Second.
Thank you, Doctor. I knew you win.
Yeah. So we have a motion and a second, and is there further discussion?
Yeah, I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Sir, how would this affect our military employees for as the tuition program? Would that be offered to them as well? Because I know that if you're retired military and then you come here and you work with the city of New Bern, you have your military benefits. So how would that affect that employee?
That's a great question. In regards to the veterans that come back, there are other opportunities, institutional aid or VA benefits. Our financial aid office and business office would work with those individuals on an individual basis, and it may be that the VA route is a better financial option than the tuition scholarship. So whichever option would benefit the employee is where we would go. So there is an option with.
So you will handle that portion of it for the employee with the military, because I know a lot of veterans are like, it's a lot of red tape involved with getting into different programs and stuff with.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
All right. Thank you.
And we have a gentleman that is located in our New Bern office that's a VA certifying official that would work with our veterans in trying to maneuver the financial obligation in determining degree programs and as such.
Okay, anybody else? We have a motion and a second. We'll have a roll call starting with Alderman Odom.
Alderman Odom.
Yes.
Alderman Best.
Yes.
Alderman Kinsey.
Yes.
Mayor Outlaw.
Yes.
Alderman Astor.
Yes.
Alderwoman Harris. Alderman Bingle.
Yes.
The motion carries, and again, thanks for what you're doing here in New Bern.
Thank you, Stowe.
Thank you. On a personal note, thank you for your service to the great city, and it is great to be home.
We're glad to have you back.
It's good to have you.
Item number 11, Mr. Stevens.
Thank you, Mayor. Item number 11 is consideration of the board to adopt a resolution accepting a proposal for engineering services from Draper, Aden and Associates for the Hurricane Florence Drainage System Project. As you are well aware, the city has been working diligently with our consultant disaster recovery services to have FEMA accept an estimated $32 million project for repairs to the city's drainage system as a result of Hurricane Florence. We, pursuant to requirements of the federal regulations and FEMA, sent out a request for qualifications for professional engineering services, and Draper, Aden and Associates was selected as the most qualified firm. This firm also submitted a proposal for engineering services related to the first phase of the project, which will be invoiced based on time and material at rates identified in the proposal, with a total cost not to exceed $515,000. It's requested that the board accept this proposal for these services. They're estimating to start on this on the 20th of January. They have a very tight time frame for completion, which is 90 days, and they're confident that they can meet that requirement. So at this time, I turn over to the board for any questions that you may have to myself or Matt Montaigne, the Director of Public Works.
I'm looking Alderman Astor on this one. You've had so much experience.
Well, it's a must. It's one of them things that we have to do to proceed forward, and I would like to make the motion that we adopt the resolution accepting the proposal for the engineering services for Draper, Aden and Associates for Hurricane Florence drainage system project.
Second.
A motion.
I will add, that is not to exceed.
Yeah, we've had some discussions with the engineer. They feel that that's going to be a significantly smaller sum as far as what it's going to be whenever they complete the work. However, they did need to have an not to exceed price at the recommendation of our consultants to make sure that's in there.
Procedural question. You at this time, if the board approves this, you would negotiate with the high scoring firm, and then if for any reason it didn't work out, you would come back. And this is FEMA reimbursable?
That's already been, typically for request for qualifications, you do negotiate that. You do a scoring system, then you negotiate those rates, but I'm turning it over to Matt.
Well, I saw your rate schedule in here, and I think that was, well, go ahead, Matt.
Yes, sir. We did do the RFQ when we got it submitted. I think there were 6 or 7 submittals. We did our rating system, and Draper Aden was the rate that's the most qualified. We've already done the negotiation part as far as the price and the fees associated with it, and that's what you have before you tonight is the proposal to do the engineering services.
Okay. Any other questions?
You asked if it's reimbursable. Actually, wouldn't even fall under DAC. This would actually fall under the project fund,
Yes,
correct?
I'm pretty sure because we've identified it already as the need for engineering services, so it should be reimbursable.
I came in late, but this is the funds that we were possibly expecting for the...
Yeah, this is the engineering services associated with that $32 million drainage ditch project. Yes, ma'am.
Gotcha. Thank you.
So, Alderman Astor, you might answer this, or once this 90 days is up and the engineering is completed, whatever, what's the timetable for the actual work to be done?
Well, we asked that question today in a conference call, and we're hoping once is there still 10?
There's 10 basins that are, I guess, significant drainage basins within the city. Of those 10 basins, the engineer projects to kind of work on them sequentially. I don't know, Danny, maybe multiple at a time. I don't know how many people you plan on putting on foot out there, but ultimately, as they get those, we're submitting those basins individually as project areas. And then at that point, it's our hopes that we can get FEMA to process them relatively quickly. Subsequently, on the heels of that, have a contractor ready to go.
So are we looking at a year and a half out that the whole project will be complete?
About 18 months.
Yeah, well, that's for everything. To actually get boots on the ground and get things started, I think we'll be much quicker than that. The additional phase that you've got before you tonight is a 90-day proposal for the engineers to come in and further identify all the damages to the permanent structures. Once we submit that to FEMA, it will take them a couple months to actually kind of approve what we submitted. But simultaneously, as they're doing that approval, we'll be doing our design work so that as soon as we get that approval, we can actually get contracts out and get contractors here. So I am optimistic that within, I want to say 6 to 8 months, we have got contractors here, boots on the ground, doing repairs to our permanent structures.
And just a little bit on how the scoring took place. How did you score those firms? How was that done?
Well, what we did is we took the package that was submitted to us, and there was a scoring chart based on the history with the drainage system, their knowledge for the drainage system, as well as the size of their firm, the experience of their firm, We submitted that to Lori Colonna, our utility warehouse, Jordan Hughes, the city engineer, myself, and George Childs, and we each individually scored each firm, and then we took all the totals for each firm together to come up with the highest scoring firm.
Okay.
I will note that 3 of the 4 people that scored did score Draper Aden highest.
And this is, so you will know, this is for the Cat D project, which is permanent work, which is work that means that a ditch bank has caved in or a head wall is collapsed.
Retaining wall, pipes.
A pipe is
yes.
collapsed and, you know, that kind of stuff. So it would be fairly quick for us to be able to find contractors to do that type of work. In fact, there should be many local contractors to do that type of work for us because
Yes,
we
sir.
already have a bunch of
And
them
we
doing
had
it.
that discussion. This is the type of work where I feel that we've got many utility contractors in the area that as soon as we get the projects designed and ready to go, that we can get pricing fairly quickly and get these projects going.
Okay, anybody else? Have a roll call starting with Alderman Bingle.
Alderman Bingle?
Yes?
Alderwoman Harris?
Yes.
Alderman Astor?
Yes.
Mayor Outlaw?
Yes.
Alderman Kinsey?
Yes.
Alderman Best?
Yes.
Alderman Odom?
Yes.
Motion carries. Item number 12, Mr. Stevens.
Thank you, Mayor. Item number 12 is resolution authorizing the addition of street lights on Howard Street. Mr. Forney of 866 Howard Street has requested additional street lighting. The Department of Public Utilities evaluated the area and determined that the current lighting does not meet the city's light standard and recommends the addition of two lights in the area. The installation of those lights will cost $1,010.83. The monthly utility charge for the service will be $16.88. There's a memo included from the Director of Public Utilities. We're happy to answer any questions.
Board have questions?
Make a motion we approve or adopt a resolution authorizing the addition of street lights on Howard Street.
Second?
Motion and second. Is there discussion? Seeing none, let's have a roll call starting with Alderman Odom.
Alderman Odom?
Yes.
Alderman Best?
Yes.
Alderman Kinsey?
Yes.
Mayor Outlaw?
Yes.
Alderman Astor?
Yes.
Alderwoman Harris?
Yes.
Alderman Bingle?
Yes.
Motion carries. Item number 13.
Thank you, Mayor. Item number 13 is also a resolution authorizing the addition of street lights on Tryon Road. Ms. Cannon at 1902 Tryon Road has requested additional street lighting near her residence. The Public Utilities Department evaluated the area and determined that the current lighting does not meet the city's light standard for streets. They recommend one light be installed. That cost will be $583.48 with a monthly utility service fee of $8.44. Once again, a memo is in your packet. We're happy to answer any questions.
Board have questions?
I'd like to make a motion that we adopt the resolution authorizing the addition of a street light on Tryon Road.
Second.
Motion and second. Is there discussion? Seeing none, let's have a roll call starting with Alderman Bingle.
Alderman Bingle?
Yes?
Alderwoman Harris?
Yes.
Alderman Astor?
Yes.
Mayor Outlaw?
Yes.
Alderman Kinsey?
Yes.
Alderman Best?
Yes.
Alderman Odom?
Yes.
Motion carries. Item number 14.
Thank you, Mayor. Item number 14 is an ordinance amending Section 30, Fire Prevention and Protection, as part of the construction of the new Highway Patrol facility out on 43. The state desires to install above-ground fuel storage tanks pursuant to Section 30-40 of Article 2 Fire Prevention Code of Chapter 30, Fire Prevention and Protection. The ordinance must be amended to add this site as an approved district for an above-ground fuel storage location. So there's a memo included from the Fire Marshal, and we're happy to answer any questions.
Okay, does the board have questions?
Perfect location. I make a motion that I'm sorry.
I'd like to make a motion that consider adopting fire and safety for the highway patrols.
Second.
Motion and second. Is there discussion? Seeing none, let's have a roll call starting with Alderman Odom.
Alderman Odom?
Yes.
Alderman Best?
Yes.
Alderman Kinsey?
Yes.
Mayor Outlaw?
Yes.
Alderman Astor?
Yes.
Alderwoman Harris?
Yes.
Alderman Bingle?
Yes.
Motion carries. Appointments starting with Alderman Bingle.
None tonight, sir.
Alderwoman Harris.
None tonight, sir.
Okay. Alderman Astor.
None tonight.
Mayor Pro Tem Astor.
None tonight.
Alderman Kinsey.
No, sir.
Alderman Best.
Yes, I do. I guess I need to address, Matt. At our September, it was a September 24th board meeting, I had some constituents and residents contact me in reference to trying to get a light, a left turn signal light over off of, I guess you would say, Trent, coming out of Trent Woods and where you would turn on to 70 West. Has anyone looked into that, or can you give me an update on that, or what?
We were doing appointments.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Just
No,
hang out right there just a second.
Yeah,
Don't go anywhere. Alderman Harris.
Well, you can, Jeff, do you have any?
No appointments.
Okay, so my question for appointments is, Kara Williams, do we know when her term was up on the planning and zoning board? Because she brought it to my attention that she was relieved of her duties 3 months before her time was up.
She was relieved of her duties?
Yeah, she said she was no longer on the board, she never got a notice or anything like that, and I remember her time was up, but she was saying that she was not on the board even when her time was available.
There's some issue with the planning and zoning board work that they're trying to get straightened out. It just came, I know the city attorney was working with the city clerk, and that some of the term limits were off, but I didn't know that it impacted anybody who was currently.
It was brought to my attention at a community meeting on Thursday, so we could take it offline and I could just kind of get with you, but I just wanted to bring that to the attention that was told to me, that she felt like she was not on the board, like she didn't get anything saying that she was no longer on the board. She knew that her term was going to be up, but she was saying it was up a lot sooner than what was allocated on the document when we say that she's appointed.
Okay. We'll look at it.
Okay.
Okay. Any other appointments at this time? Let's go, and Matt, just hang out there just a second. Attorney's report.
Mayor, members of the board, I got one item for you. You have before you a resolution authorizing the mayor to sign a quitclaim deed from the city to the city to impose a deed restriction. Foster has been diligently pushing forward on this part of grant for the Martin Marietta Park. You may recall that we acquired the last Martin Marietta parcel before the grant funds showed up, or even qualified for, I believe. Generally, when you have a deed restriction, it's imposed on the property when it's acquired. But because we didn't know that we had a deed restriction, we couldn't do it. So this is a point where we are imposing upon ourselves a deed restriction pursuant to the provisions of the grant that the property will only be used for public recreational purposes.
So we're going to do a grantor to the grantee and both be in the same.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So moved.
Yeah. You need a motion second?
That's the motion to authorize the resolution, yes.
Okay.
Second.
Motion second. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion second?
Roll
you
call.
want roll call? Okay. I have roll call starting with Alderman Odom. You do have that in writing?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, gotcha.
Before you.
I'm sorry.
Alderman Odom?
Yes.
Alderman Best?
Yes.
Alderman Kinsey?
Yes.
Mayor Outlaw?
Yes.
Alderman Astor?
Yes.
Alderwoman Harris?
Yes.
Alderman Bingle?
Yes.
Motion carries. What you got?
I was gonna say,
Oh, no, I found it. I'm sorry.
that was it.
Anything else on the attorney's report?
No, sir.
City manager's report?
I have nothing to report tonight, sir.
New business. Just go ahead, Matt. Answer Alderman Best's question, and then we'll take it.
If you will, I'll try to update you on a couple DOT things because, getting responses from DOT sometimes can be difficult. But Alderman Best, to answer your question about the left turn signal onto Highway 70 West, we've communicated with them a couple times. I think when they put the lane in or the road diet in, we were told at the time they would continue to monitor the situation, and if at that time they felt the need to add it, they would. We did talk to them probably back in September, October sometime, and they told us they would continue to monitor it, and we have not had any further discussion since that period. So I'm more than happy to reach out to them again. I don't know if at this point they see it as an issue, but I will certainly try to get some type of formal response from them and forward it back to you so you can pass that on to your constituents. Alderman Odom, just to follow up on some concerns over on Yarmouth coming out of Kings Road community, we did reach back out to them and of course have not got a response on that one yet, again. So I can reach back out to them again, but it seems like I'm not sure if we need to go a different route or reach out to somebody else, but we're sending that to several different people and just not getting a response. And then the final issue with DOT is the timing of the bridge closure. We did get a response. It has been forwarded to the Coast Guard. The Coast Guard has gone ahead and publicly advertised the changing of the schedule of the bridge. It needs to be advertised for a minimum of 30 days for public comment. And then once they have any comments they may receive at that point, they'll discuss it and make a decision on the request. So that has been submitted and the public comment period has started.
The public comment, will it be in Bern or?
They posted on several different websites, and comments should be submitted to the Coast Guard.
Is it at all possible we can get that, some verbiage put on the Facebook page? Because I have probably like 500 people that tag me when the bridge is open. So to get this new development, I think it will kind of ease some of the tagging when the bridge is stuck to them.
I can certainly reach out to the Coast Guard, get a copy of that posting.
Perfect.
And then if you like I said, you want to put it out on the.
Yeah, if you can email it to me, I'll put it on my Alderman page.
So if we're in the 30 days, we don't know how much longer after that until we'll have a decision and we can implement the change?
We don't have one at this point.
While you're standing here, will you give us a quick update on the old airport road?
It's rained all week. No, the contractor did come back for a couple days last week. We've unfortunately had several days of rain between last week and the beginning part of this week. But they have, the shoulders for the most part have been widened. There's one small section, and this is the first phase between Carolina Colors and Evans Mill. There's one section that is still needing to be widened, the shoulders widened, and then this week they will also start making some of the full depth repairs before they start doing the complete resurface here in the next couple of weeks. So I fully anticipate, I've been saying mid-March that phase of the project will be complete. I'm optimistic that it'll probably be sooner than that, but mid-March is a good time frame for that phase. As far as the other phase between Taberna and Colors, we're in the process of securing up some easements. The contracts are going back and forth. They've been executed by, the notice of award's been executed by the city manager. We received the contracts executed by the contractor, and now I'll send them back to Mark to sign. So hopefully in the next 30 days or so, we'll be getting that phase of the project started as well.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll go. One more thing. Man, I just want to thank you for getting that RFQ out and getting that engineer company in here to get this drainage system project started. Thank you very much. Thank you and your staff.
We've been working on for a long time,
Yes.
including Alderman Astor and Mark and all that, and I'm glad to see it moving forward as well.
Thank you.
New business starting with Alderman Odom.
Yes, sir. Nothing for you, Mr. Montaigne.
I'll just go ahead and wait though.
Mr. Ruggieri, any updates or word from mall ownership? No, really.
Not.
I'm
That
shocked.
last text I shared with you was our last conversation. I'll follow up in the morning.
Okay.
I'll follow up as soon as I sit down.
All right, so for the public's benefit, I had a conversation with Mr. Tom Pike of Chick-fil-A. Chick-fil-A has plans, they have funding, and they are ready to address and fix the traffic problem. However, they're not getting cooperation or communication with the mall ownership. So, just so the public is aware.
Is it possible, though, excuse me, just for him to hire off-duty or do something? Somebody is going to get hurt. The backup onto Martin Luther King and then people trying to swerve around to maybe go somewhere else. I am so worried, and with children and everything like that, you can't get in and out of that parking lot. I'm just concerned.
I guess there's probably options. I will tell you from an MPO perspective, that whole section is being studied for a major improvement, and it could be that the mall may lose one of those entrances if they don't cooperate. So I just want to update everyone on that. Foster, I want to say thank you and congratulations on another successful New Year's Eve. It was a little bit different this year because we were kind of expecting what was going to happen. You threw a few surprises in there for us, but it was a great evening. Heard a lot of positive feedback about the way it went, so thank you for that. The last thing I want to invite everyone, if you're around, on Saturday, January the 25th from 12 noon to 4 p.m. It's kind of a floating open house of the new cancer center that will be open. It's a community open house that day. So if you're around, I'd encourage you to come by and take a look. It is a absolute beautiful facility. I hope no one in here that hears this has to ever go in there, but as our CEO said today, it's highly likely that you will. But it's a great facility. It's going to be a tremendous asset for this community. And that's all I have, sir.
What was that date again, please?
January 25th from noon to 4.
Alderman Best.
Yes, I do. First of all, I'd just like to apologize for stepping out of line here. That's one of the reasons why I don't use my cell phone. I have people calling me and texting me wanting to ask about some questions. But what I want to ask, I guess Amanda or Jeff can answer this question for me. I have numerous citizens that live within my ward, and they're elderly, and there are some dire needs to be done to their homes. And I would like for you to, for those that are listening tonight, they may want to know the process as well. How can these individuals, and I want to take this upon myself to do, because these, like I said, these are two elderly individuals and they're homebound and they don't have any relatives to really help them out with the process. So what is the process that's needed for them to get on the list to be able to receive some of the Cdbg funds?
Just give us an address and a contact, and we'll start from there. It's a long process. There's a lot of requirements that need to be met. I mean, it's pretty much a 50% success rate from the need to actually qualify, sometimes less, but just please give me the address, the contact number, and we'll take it from there and see what we can do.
Okay, for the application process, it's a very lengthy process with the application?
Yes.
Okay, is that where confidentiality, would I be able to step in to help this person out, or this is something that they have to come to your office?
No, it's not that confident. I mean,
Okay.
if they're comfortable with sharing with you, that's all.
All right, thank you. And also while you're there, I want to ask, there was another question I have here. Oh, yes, I've had numerous constituents and a lot of the residents that live over in the North Hills Drive area has contacted me because they were concerned that they did not get notification that their home was one of the ones that was qualified for elevation. And I told their understanding that, hey, my home has been flooded numerous times. Why didn't I qualify? So can you just do a little brief synopsis of that so that the individuals that's listening and are calling me, that they would know how that process worked and that it's not anything that your office or I did to kick them out of the actual
So you
plan.
want a justification of the people, because we contacted the 18 that were approved. You want to know.
This is for those
who
that
didn't.
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
and that's something that we've been working on. I don't know. Amanda's been asking. I'm not sure if she has a good answer yet.
I don't have a good answer yet, but pretty much immediately when we received that notification of those homes that were chosen, posed the question back to the state to kind of let us know what their decision criteria were, the homes that weren't selected, why not, or what next steps might be, and that currently lives with the state. I received an update from staff that followed up with email that they had not forgotten about the request, but they're running it up their chain of command before they share any kind of answer, and that's been well over a month or 2 months at this point. So we are still waiting for that information to be shared, and right now we quite honestly don't have anything else to offer those homeowners at this point in time.
So have you heard anything back from the actual acquisitions of properties?
No.
No, okay. And that's all based on, you get your feedback from the state?
Correct.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, what they had shared is they sort of phase some of their activities between acquisition and elevation, kind of for quality control measures, but right now all of those applications are still under development for hazard mitigation grant programs.
Oh, thank you. And that was it. Thank you.
Okay, Alderman Kinsey.
This is for the manager. We spoke about the police department and moving them from the mall to the water plant building. Where are we at with that, and what we need to do to move forward with that?
It's still an option. There were some considerations that we want to look at with that particular facility. I know with there's some complexities with what we've got to work through on several different things. We have multiple community meetings that happen at the mall substation because of the meeting space. I think we've probably got enough meeting space to accommodate that, so that shouldn't be an issue. As far as the need for the building, I think we can meet the requirements of what is needed for that particular facility, but ultimately it's whether the board wants to entertain the option of moving out of the mall from the mall substation. I think we pay, I checked with Chief about a week ago, I think it was. I think we pay about $950 a month for that space, that lease space there. Forgive me because I can't remember everything that the chief said, but there were some other complexities that we need to work through, and he's not here tonight as he's off. I think he's at a conference right now. But let me get back with you if you don't mind. But I know that is still something that's on our radar about the potential for usage of that. But ultimately, it's kind of more of a discussion and decision of this board whether or not we want to continue to lease space at the mall and utilize that, or if we want to develop this as a substation per se, if you want to call it that, for police to operate out of.
Anything else?
That's it, sir.
On that, I remember Alderman Kinsey and Alderman Aden and others went through that building, and part of the move to the new water plant was we felt like our employees deserve a safer environment, lead paint, asbestos, etc. I would like, from your question, I'd like a cost benefit of energy costs, water, sewer, electric at the mall, rental analysis versus the annual recapture or maintenance on that particular renovation of that. And everything right down to water, sewer, electric for that. I don't know if you've done that, but I know the movement was toward doing that, but I was always concerned about the integrity of that building and the police department being in. It reminded me very much of the building that was where the police station is now, and the police department was in a building which I would consider somewhat substandard of what an employee of the city would want to be in, but do a cost analysis on it.
Yeah, sure.
Alderman Asher.
Yes, sir. Mr. Mayor, first I'd like to tell you that the residents of Blue Water Rise wants to thank you for helping them get. They finally have cable TV and internet service out there, so they're
really
happy
like to
campers.
accept that, but you certainly did 99% of the work and with staff, and I'm just glad they got it.
I am too. Foster, question or two for you if you don't mind. Can you give us an update on those two boats that are parked right behind your office and the one that's on Jack's Island?
Well, I'll talk about the submerged boat that was behind my office. I just said it was, but we finally got confirmation this morning that the boat owner had no intention of doing anything with it. They walked away from it. Talked with the city manager and the city attorney, and the manager gave me authorization to go ahead and have our staff pump that boat out, which we did this afternoon. We pulled it over to the shore, and first thing in the morning, staff is going to dismantle that boat and take it to the landfill. So one down, one to go. With the sailboat, we've identified the owner. We found out letters to his residence have come back, with certified mail have come back, no response. So we found out where he's worked. We've got his phone number, so we'll be reaching out to him this week to try to get resolution on whether or not that owner is going to take responsibility for that boat and do something with it.
Thank
If
you.
not, then we'll.
What did you find out at your conference?
Well, all of the coastal communities are in the same position that we are. I know that there's been a push by Department of Environmental Quality to want to start spearheading, doing something to where all of the communities can work together toward getting some teeth with some legislation, and hopefully we'll see something moving forward in the future on that.
Okay, good. I would just like to say one thing, Mr. Mayor. The owner of the sailboat that's sitting on Jack's Island, I certainly hope that owner will step up, take responsibility, and remove his trash from our property. I think it's ridiculous that we have to deal with that kind of stuff.
I just litter myself.
I do too, and I wish he would be cited. I've said it for months now that I wish they would write him a ticket every day for littering. Last thing I have is, please don't forget that the New Bern Fireman's Museum Barbecue for Blue Jeans is this Friday night. Is that correct, Bob? This Friday night. Tickets are on sale at the fire station and at the Fireman's Museum, and they will also be available at the door. And that's all I have. Thank you.
I'll see you Friday night.
Yep.
Alderwoman Harris.
First and foremost, I just want to say congratulations to Mr. Foster Hughes and his staff for a wonderful New Year's Eve. I wasn't able to be there. I had sick babies, so I chose to stay home. I just have a few things. Mr. Bouchard, I was wondering if you had a status update on 2204 Grace Ave. It's in Bobby's ward, but they emailed me about a light on that street. It's very dark. I know you were sending it to get evaluated, but I don't know if you have an update. If not, you could just give me.
I don't know where the status is right now. I can
Okay.
follow up with staff and see where it's at in our work queue. And
Perfect. All right, thank you. And the city manager. Do we have a status update on FEMA when it comes to Stanley White?
It's cleared the EHP process, I think was the last update, we should be hearing something hopefully here pretty soon about the funding, but it's still in their works. They've got everything that they need. It's working through their system.
Gotcha.
That's about all I can tell you.
It's working quickly too.
Yeah,
All right.
it's moving quick now.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. That is all I have.
Okay, Alderman Bingham.
Kudos again to Foster. Downtown was a great event on New Year's Eve, and it'll probably be a moment, I've said this before, that I'll always remember, because standing on the stage, I couldn't believe that it was people lined up from the stage all the way to Middle Street, and then to see them all turn around when the bears started to drop with their telephones. It looked like little lights, little candles, and it was really a really neat and a wonderful moment, and thank you to all the citizens that participated. The only other thing I want to do is pay tribute to two wonderful New Bernians who have passed away since our last meeting. And first and foremost is our good friend Mary Randolph. For those of you, let me tell you something, this woman, 98 years old, was a spitfire. And anybody who knows her knew when she climbed up those steps, she meant business. She wasn't here to just sit and watch. She was here to tell us something. I have had the fortune of knowing her for almost 40 years. And she was a friend, but she didn't hold back. And, 98 years, and she loved this city. But she had something to say. She would say it. I'm going to miss her calling me on the phone and telling me what's wrong with all the people in New Bern. So I will miss that about her. My sincere condolences go to her daughter. And I asked the mayor to hook me up with her daughter, because when you would go to visit her, in her home, her entire dining room table was stacked like this with papers and newspaper articles about New Bern and things that happened and history here. And she knew everything, and she knew exactly which pile to go in to say, see, this is the way it was. And I would love to have those papers to come back here to City Hall so that we have some of those records and information. And really, she was very active in the civil rights movement here. And she has all of that information, all the newspaper articles and all of that. It's really fascinating. So
Sounds like it should go to the African American Museum and Center.
Well, someplace. I just want it to be memorialized and held on to so it doesn't disappear. Speaking of the Firemen's Museum, the only picture we have of an African American fireman in uniform is Miss Mary Randolph's grandfather. And that picture she gave to the Firemen's Museum years ago, and I'm really glad and honored that we have it. The other person I'd like to pay tribute to is Miss Agnes Durda, who again was another wonderful New Bern icon. Lived all her life in this city, loved this city like nobody I didn't know, and you know, a special, special lady. She was a very special part of the Lebanese and Syrian people that lived here. Made the best cookies and cakes and always had a smile. Was very active in the women's club and never visited you without asking you to buy a ticket or something to raise funds for the women's club. So again, my condolences to her her daughters, her grandchildren, her great-grandchildren, a very special lady that we've lost here since Christmas. And that's all I have.
Okay.
Mayor, one
Yes,
thing
ma'am.
I completely forgot about, and I do not want to get beat up by this organization. Monday, January 20th at 8 a.m. at the Flame, the Martin Luther King Outreach Ministry will be having their annual prayer breakfast. So if you're not doing anything on January 20th, please attend this function. You can purchase a ticket at the door. If not, please contact me if you do so desire to attend. It would be greatly appreciated.
Okay. Is there anything further to come before this new?
I just want to say one more time, thank you to Lori for stepping up and taking care of the finance director's position, and especially your part in handling our FEMA claims. Doing a great job.
Anything else come before the board?
Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion second. All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. All opposed, the same. Meeting is adjourned.